This week on the Markcast, Edmonton. Terrible. Horrible.
Yeah, Edmonton's having their worst week ever. I thank God every day I wake up and I'm an Edmonton Elks fan. We have a great show coming up. We talked with Jeff Hamilton, Winnipeg Free Press.
Edmonton's been a circus all year. You just kind of wonder, how many lows is this team going to hit?
We get into all the stuff about Edmonton, about the Eddie Steeles of the world, about everything going on in the CFL, all the drama and everything.
Who do you think? I mean, you're a guy watching it. Besides your wife, who's got the smartest. Your wife's beautiful, man. She likes the Bombers. Right on. What's your wife's name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. For the Wizard of Oz. She knows what's going on.
We have Chris Walby, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I think Chris Walby wants to really start talking to my wife, Dorothy, who's a Winnipeg Blue Bomber fan. Really lively interview with Chris Walby.
We're really making some headway, I think, on this America's team thing, right? We might have to talk to Jerry Jones about getting that term used for us only, right?
I tell you, I mean, this is the thing. I tell Paul this. I go, this stuff is brought up on other shows that I'm not even bringing up now. And I officially have deemed Matt Baker the manager of communications and content for America's CFL team, the BC Lions. Matt Baker comes on. We're talking BC Lions on the bye week. What else struck you this week, Paul?
BC Lions followed you back on Twitter. Dany and The Rock tweeting about the XFL. Got some XFL news.
Got some XFL news. We have fan control football news, actual fan control football news coming back in the spring. We get into all the stuff this week. We're previewing the week. We're talking Blue Bombers. Trevor Harris is coming back. We're talking, all the Edmonton. It's the song that will never end. All the drama there. TV ratings. Lucky Whitehead. All the stuff. We're watching Thursday Night Football. I've had a beer. It's a lively show.
And maybe this week, Cody Fajardo won't spaz out on us on Twitter or on the sideline. That's all this week on the Markcast.
I like your action green. The Seahawks Thursday Night Football jersey, Paul.
A lot of people were starting to make comments online about how ugly they were, and I've always liked how good they look. This is Cam Chancellor's jersey. It's an authentic action green. I got this a few years back, and I just wanted to kind of say I like the action green. Reed likes the action green, and if you don't like the action green, well, 2 words for you.
I like it. I'm not going to buy a Seahawks jersey, but if I would buy a Seahawks jersey, it would be an action green jersey. So.
Because you're Washington football mark all the way now.
Hey, we beat the Falcons this week. I went to the bar. It was on, because in Seattle it's damn near impossible to go a Washington football game, but it was on one TV in the corner of the bar, and I got to watch. Taylor Heineke with the game-winning pass and run, and it was great.
Did you hear his post-game conference, by the way? What he was saying?
Yes, about him sleeping on the couch with his sister and his brother-in-law. Yeah, I mean, he's that's the everyman. He's the everyman. He is succeeding. He's so humble. I have a story about him later on being called baby Russell Wilson. I mean, the players really like him. There's a lot, but there's a lot of goodwill there, right? And that's what is discovered by these alternate football leagues. So I think that's cool.
Cool. Very cool stuff. I got a big show today. Reed talks to Jeff Hamilton from the Winnipeg Free Press, Chris Walby from the former 3-time Grey Cup champion Winnipeg, and then Matt Baker, manager of communications and content for the BC Lions.
Yeah, we got to get show. Yeah. Chris Walby, 3-time Grey Cup. The Winnipeg has won many Grey Cups. He won, but Chris Walby, when he found out that Dorothy was a fan of Winnipeg, I think Chris wants to steal my wife now. I think Chris Walby, he's like, Dorothy, quit calling me. I mean, very lively interview with Chris. Jeff is always good. We've talked with Jeff before. Jeff has a lot of things today. We kind of did there's a lot of stuff going on right now. There's the Edmonton thing. There's the Kenny Lawler thing. There's the Eddie Steele getting let go from Ched Radio. All the different stories. We kind of do all that with Jeff. Chris gets into a little bit of that, and then we kind of do Winnipeg, more season weekend previewy stuff. And then, BC Lions are on the bye week, but we are invading Canada next week. So we have Matt Baker. He is a fan of the America's CFL team, the campaign that we are doing. I've also told him to make sure that Mr. Doman knows what a Markcast is. So I think that we are on good. We're getting in there. He said they're going to wave to us. He knows where we're sitting at the game. They might have some stuff for us, when we go to the game. So yeah,
very cool stuff for you, maybe possibly, because I'm rolling my Argos, who put the hurting on Red Blacks this week. It's beautiful, man.
That was good. Yeah, when you have like 3 touchdowns in one quarter. I mean, defensive. Very happy with my fantasy picks this week, courtesy of listener Max. We did all Ottawa and Argos fantasy because they're both playing twice this week. So the players cost a little bit more, but Ottawa even got us a ton of points because they just couldn't score touchdowns. Like Caleb Edmonds would throw the ball to the 10-yard line and then get a pick. So we would still get, it was like the best of both worlds. You know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Paul, happy Fan Control Football News Day.
I saw that. And before we start the show, I just want to explain to Jim Mullen. The reason why I'm wearing this hat right now is because my Yankees completely crapped the bed. 1. 2, my family's from Bushwick, from Bed-Stuy, so they're from Brooklyn. And 3, my best friend, she's a huge Dodgers fan, so that's why we're wearing this.
That's okay. I brought out the old school XFL Markcast one today. I thought that was fitting.
I mean, you can't buy those anymore. It's limited. It's a special item now.
But anyway, we have Fan Control Football News we're going to get to later in the show, and then we're going to break down all the XFL, NFL. It's not a partnership, but we're going to talk about all that. So we got a lot of CFL stuff. I feel like I'm Rod Peterson now. I'm apologizing for talking about XFL stuff on a CFL podcast because Rod now apologizes for talking about CFL he apologizes about talking about CFL stuff. I'm like, hey, we got to talk NFL. I'm like, Rod, you're a Canadian radio personality.
And he was like the guy in the bar says he wants to hear more about the NFL, not about the CFL. It's like, well, don't cater to that audience of one, Rod. Cater to the audience you already have who wants to hear about the CFL. Anyway, that's just my thing.
Yeah, so we're gonna do CFL, all the stuff. Then we got a lot of XFL, and then we'll do Fan Control there at the end. Breaking news, first and foremost. The BC Lions waking up. They have followed the XFL the Markcast account back on Twitter. So all is right in the world.
Congratulations on getting that follow back. I know it's what you wanted.
I lost Paul's camera there for a moment.
There we go. I'm back.
That's okay. Anyway, so BC Lions did that. Also, you'll notice I have, it'll be changed by the time this is airing, but I lost my big bet to Milt Stiegel, CFL Hall of Famer. I called out Matt Baker and the Lions in our interview. I said, you really made me look foolish in front of Milt Stiegel. But I took the Winnipeg logo and I flipped it upside down, kind of like the Miz used to do in WWE. So it looks like a Markcast M. I thought that was so freaking smart of me.
It's clever. That is a very clever way to fulfill that bet.
Yeah, so that'll be good. But lots of fun. No one to bet this week. Obviously, the Lions are off. Also, this didn't get as much traction as I wanted, but I was really excited about this. CFL and Twisted Tea are doing a giveaway to go to the Grey Cup, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I look at the rules. It's must be a legal Canadian citizen. I go, just more gatekeeping from the CFL, keeping those out. But I mean, I understand tax things.
I think Braden's buying that. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I understand tax ramifications and why we can't do that. But Paul, we need to promote more independent Canadian football platforms, just not the ones that people don't like.
Yeah, the ones that people disagree with, then we can't promote those. But if we're homers about it, then promote those. So.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, we're going to talk about Dany and the Rock later in the show. Oh, this is just a side note. So, this is fascinating for me. So, you're going to be so excited because we're going to get to have more Bachelor talk on the podcast. So, back in the day, Brandon Silvers with the XFL Dragons looked like the guy Chase, whatever that was on the Bachelor. So, I didn't know this. Dorothy and I are so far behind on watching Bachelor. So, they've announced a new Bachelor. His name is Jesse Palmer. He's famous, right? He played for the 49ers.
That's the new host.
Yeah, he's the new host. Yeah.
You said that was a new Bachelor.
Yeah, no. Jesse Palmer's the new host. Jesse Palmer, former NFL quarterback, played half a season in 2006 with the Montreal Alouettes. So former CFL quarterback Jesse Palmer is going to be the host of The Bachelor.
That's awesome. That's good news for him. He used to be on The Bachelor. I think he
was The Bachelor in this. Also, I am drinking right now. We're watching Thursday Night Football. So if you're like, why is Reed so excited right now? That is what's happening. It was a long day. Also,
I'm holding on to my drinks, but yeah.
That's okay. Also, happy Thanksgiving Monday in Canada. I didn't know this was a thing, but it's Thanksgiving Canada weekend.
Some people say it's the real Thanksgiving. I don't know, but happy Thanksgiving, Canada. Thanksgiving Monday to the Canadians.
Yeah, I would have titled.
Does that mean their Christmas shopping starts Tuesday?
Maybe.
Is that a thing?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I would have called the episode that. I didn't realize that. I called the episode Edmonton's worst week ever because Edmonton, like, nothing is going right for the Edmonton Elks. I thank God every day I wake up and I'm not an Edmonton Elks fan. So anyway, but happy Thanksgiving Monday in Canada. Also, I'm thinking in 2 weeks, we'll talk about this. We might have a Thursday. We might record maybe and then air the episode on Thursday because all my guests seem to only be able to record on Wednesday. And so I thought, well, maybe we could record. We'll talk about it. But I just thought, I just wanted to put it out there. Not a live show, nothing crazy. Just maybe post the episode early. So.
Cool. Well, last week's games, the Red Blacks took out the Elks 34-24. The Alouettes 23, the Hamilton Tigerettes 20, the Blue Bombers 30 over Reed's BC Lions that are not America's CFL team. And the Stamps beat the Rough Riders 23-17.
Yeah, surprising there. Obviously, Rough Riders, they're going to do it again this week. Again, it's like all these flippy flops. So Stampeders are going into Saskatchewan this week. Curious to be what happens there. Bo Levi sat out at the end of the game last week. He says he feels better this week per, I have a story coming up here, per non-friend of the show. Dany Austin, when he writes his articles, he titles them from Daniel Austin.
Okay.
But I mean, like, are you Dany Austin or are you Daniel Austin?
Pick one.
Pick one. I don't need to be. Anyway, big games this week. We already talked about the Argos, all that. So then the Elks, obviously facing Winnipeg. We're going to preview that with Chris Walby coming up. The flippy floppy Stampeders at Rough Riders, Red Blacks at Alouettes, and then the Argos again. It's like two of the teams are playing twice this week. It's it's like a 5-week. Two of the games are on Monday. It's truly a phenomenal week there, and obviously you see the pick'ems. So
shout out to COVID for doing that for us, and those pick'ems. Those are interesting. What was Christina thinking here with this pick? The Red Blacks over the. Am I reading that right? No. This is after the fact. Everybody picked the Argonauts. That's right. My bad.
No, this is for this coming week. Yeah. So obviously everyone's picking Winnipeg. Pat Steinberg. Pat Steinberg's kind of like he's a Calgary mark. He really likes Calgary, and then obviously Hamilton being Toronto. So the big story this week, and obviously the title of the episode, Edmonton's worst week ever. So there's all this stuff going on. We talked last week about Brock Sunderland, the GM of the Elks. He's not vaccinated. They've had 17 players be vaccinated. All this stuff. The latest thing that came out about this is Eddie Steele, who he does like the play-by-play for Ched, 630 Ched, whatever. He was on Rod's show last week. He had some bad things to say. He was on the pre-game show on the radio. And then just today, I just added this. He was on Jason Greger's show, and he called the Elks bottom feeders of the CFL, which is, whatever. They've let him go. So there's all this drama because it's like, Ched gets the game. They're like connected to the Elks, but it's supposed to be separate, right? Like This is why like we can say whatever we want. You get like the issues there, right?
Yeah, completely. Like when someone. So for example, there was an incident at KTLA. Since my last day is today, technically.
Paul's starting a new job.
I'm starting a new job. I'm leaving KTLA. There was a guy that went on social media and started bashing the Dodgers. If KTLA had a partnership with the Dodgers, so they were like, "Get the out of here." They jettisoned him out of the building. So this happens. This does happen.
Yeah. So Eddie I talked with Chris Walby about this because Chris, obviously a former player with Winnipeg. Chris also does a lot of broadcasting. So I said, Chris, you kind of get both sides of this because. You have your freedom of speech as a player, and you should have your freedom of speech as a broadcaster, but then when you're a broadcaster and like you're in a relationship, it gets murky with all of that, right? Because you're the media and the independent media, but if you're with like a station sponsored media, very, very, very messy. Luke Melinder, he does the Rough Riders. He thinks that they should be ashamed. Lots and lots of drama. Nothing is going right for Edmonton right now.
Look, I completely understand the freedom of speech argument. That's great. Freedom of speech can protect you from not getting criminally prosecuted for things you say. Granted, unless you're like actually assaulting someone and saying you're going to kill them, that's a different story. But like, you don't have freedom of consequences from a private company hiring you. Like you still have to, you still have to abide by their terms and conditions when you take that job. So like, I understand it's kind of petty and nonsensical to fire the guy, but at the same time, freedom of speech does have consequences. to some extent.
Yeah, it's not good. It's one of those things like Joe Rogan used to get into that a lot, right? When he would like criticize like sponsors and things. And, we want these people to have their voice, but then there's obviously like money and stuff involved, right? And, that's why like it's great the BC Lions follow us, whatever, that's great. But I never want to have some XFL podcasts, right? Have like a partnership with the XFL. Like then you get into like, well, what can we talk about and what can't we talk about versus like, I don't want Fan Control Football to like us at all because then we can talk about them whatever we want.
It's very incestuous when you become like basically a mouthpiece for whatever you're supposed to be objectively covered. It's really like it brings your credibility into question.
Yeah. So anyway, this is he's making the rounds right now, right? He is a former Edmonton player. Not really good. It sounds like he's going to get picked up somewhere else, right? Either kind of do his own podcast or maybe get picked up by somebody else. Jeff has a lot more things to say about this as well, right? Jeff is someone that like writes for Winnipeg and, does a lot of press things. So I would check that out, but really not a good look. Continuing with this, the other story that came out today with Edmonton yesterday, today, whatever, with all this is Robin Brownlee. He's a Edmonton media person, came out. So this Joey Moss was someone who he was like a developmentally disabled, right? Had special needs. And he was someone that was around with like Wayne Gretzky and the hockey team, and then with the Edmonton. And he would kind of be like in the locker rooms and hoorah-rah and, really hanging out with the guys and they were having fun with him. Well, it's come out that like maybe Brock Sunderland, the GM of the Edmonton, also was like, we don't want this guy around. He's a distraction, right? Jeff has a lot of things to say about this in the interview as well, but he was basically like beloved across, everyone loved him, and it seemed like maybe the GM thought that was a distraction. So that's kind of the other thing.
And of course, the Elks issued a statement saying the Elks categorically denied that any member of the club's management requested that Joey no longer be part of the organization. The Green and Gold cherished Joey's presence around the team and respect the important role he played with the organization for decades. I'm not buying it. This is, they're talking about the cultural issues in Edmonton, and like you guys have serious cultural issues the opposite way of what you're trying to maybe you want to perpetuate this culture. I don't know what's going on. You guys are a mess.
Yeah, and then I talk about with Jeff too. There was like one of the equipment managers. He had been with the team for like 49 years. They let him go before his 50th year. Just a lot of things going on right now there. Not necessarily related to football, but then obviously we're in the middle of the season. We're going into Winnipeg this week and trying to face that. So I don't, as a team. Obviously football is secondary to a lot of these like personal issues, but it's something that is certainly becoming alarmingly weird that like Edmonton is the only team that has had any COVID issues like at all. Like no one else, like not one other team has had anything.
This is like, it's becoming a thing where every week we're talking about something bad with Edmonton. Like we'll talk about one bad thing with Winnipeg here, go 3 weeks, nothing will happen. One bad thing about Toronto here, 3 weeks, maybe one bad thing about Hamilton every 6 weeks. Every week we're talking something bad about Edmonton. Is this the culture you want in Edmonton? Is this the culture? Your nickname got canceled because it's offensive to Inuit people. And now like there's a different culture in place and it's not a good culture.
Yeah. So, obviously Brock is getting called. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is still going. I mean, we could wake up tomorrow and there could be more, fallouts from all this. I mean, obviously we're recording late on Thursday, but it's really kind of an evolving situation now where management, current players, the players that got let go, right? Like the Derek Dennises of the world were unhappy getting let go. Kenny Stafford, right, being made an example of, hey, we don't want this guy in our locker room. So anyway, it's something we're going to keep up. But yeah, Edmonton, definitely the worst week ever thus far.
Interesting stuff.
So the other kind of thing this week, drama stuff. So Kenny Lawler, he's like the star wide receiver for Winnipeg. Kenny got a DUI the other day. Luckily, nobody was hurt, thankfully, right? I mean, drinking and driving is not great. Kenny came out, the team issued an apology. Kenny issued an apology. Kenny's not going to play in the game this week. He's being suspended temporarily. So it's one of those things where Kenny is getting a lot of heat right now. And I understand that it's a serious situation, but also the league, the team, everybody is being incredibly upfront about it. Like the second they found out it happened.
I have nothing else to add to that. I completely agree with you.
Yes, I mean, so they released this statement. I just, it's one of those. I've just seen a lot of people online like really, really say mad things about Kenny. I agree, drinking and driving isn't great, but it's one of those things like if we can learn from any of this, if Kenny can turn this around and make a positive about it, that's something that we need to be in support of. DUI, I've had friends that have like tremendous monetary value, right? That you're tens of thousands of dollars in the States to fight all this stuff, to go through all the processes. So like the last thing we need is like nameless Twitter people yelling at Kenny, but hopefully he'll get all this going. And thankfully Winnipeg really handled this correctly. So kudos for them.
Yeah. First name, bunch of numbers is definitely the person you want to seek out for a great opinion on something on Twitter. Vaccine air travel update. Naylor posted the following on Wednesday. Now being told by federal government source that previous information given to him was incorrect. Apparently Canadians flying after October 30th will be able to fly with only a negative test until the end of November. That means unvaxxed CFL players can get to road games in November. Apparently originally it was thought they had to be in the process of getting vaxxed. The end of November means there's still some games to be played after November. So this seems like this might affect some Grey Cup stuff.
You got East-West finals on December 5th, and then you have the Grey Cup on the 12th. So both of those games are very, very much, because this came out, right? Naylor came out and said, it was really thought like, end of October, you're not going to be able to travel unless you like have it. They said like you either needed to have something scheduled or have one shot or whatever. And then Naylor went on the TV last night. He was on the broadcast and he said, as long as you have a negative test, you're going to be good through the end of November. But it is like big time. If you're getting into the finals and you can't travel with the team, there's some long road trips. When BC's got to travel to, I'm kidding BC, but potentially, I mean, this was also interesting. So we have 5 teams now that have reached the 85% vaccinated. BC, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Hamilton, Montreal. Surprised Toronto's not in there.
Get it together, Toronto. Need you to get it together.
But I mean, that's interesting because I've never seen it listed like that, where we would have the 5 teams so far of 9, right, that we know that have reached 85%.
Yep. Cody Fajardo spazzed out like a child in the Rough Riders sideline, apologized for it. He said, I spazzed out like a child on the sideline. Like someone took my toy away during the loss to Calgary. It's not the only place you spazzed out, Cody. You spazzed out on Twitter, too. He says, I let the frustrations of the game and emotions of the game affect me afterwards. I wasn't raised like that. It's been a tough weekend on me to not only lose the game, but also to know you've hurt some people's feelings, and I didn't want it to come across that way. You did hurt Reed's feelings.
Yeah, I tweeted this. I said, this all came about when you blocked us on Twitter. I talked about this. Jeff and I, we have a good banter about this. This is like the Cody Fajardo heel turn right now is the most fascinating thing to me in the world, because it's like he comes out, how like when someone's in wrestling, if you're a good guy, right, and then you begin the process of becoming a bad guy, right, like it's a slow turn, and so they'll come out and like beat somebody up, and then oh no, like they'll be remorseful about it, and then the next week they'll come back out and do it again. That's like Cody right now. He came out, he blasted his teammates, he said he didn't have the talent there to throw to him. They signed Duke Williams coming up that we have a note here, and then he comes out, oh no, I'm really sorry, I didn't really mean all that. Well, I mean, you got your way, you got a new receiver signed, but now next week are we going to get this again? If Calgary blows them out again? Yep.
Then the onus becomes on you. Like then it's your problem. It's not any talent they're not putting around you, because of course they did sign a veteran wide receiver Duke Williams. He has played in Edmonton. He played in the NFL.
Played with the Bills.
Yeah, looks like a super good get for them. Let's see what he does.
If Saskatchewan loses this week, we need to have the title be something like something about Cody being heel. Like we got to workshop this, like the fallen hero Cody Fajardo or something, because it really is. It's like fascinating. I spazzed out like a child on the sidelines. I mean, where would you ever hear that? It's fascinating to me. I put the weeknight TV ratings in here. The Winnipeg BC game did really good, 600,000 on Friday night, kind of that marquee one. The average for the weekend was 469. They competed a lot with the Blue Jays now that obviously RIP Arash aren't in the. Should I reach out to Arash now to see if he'll come on the show and be like, hey, I know you're not covering the Blue Jays.
I know you got nothing else better to do. Does he cover the Raptors at all, or just the Blue Jays?
I don't think he covers the Raptors. I don't think.
A lot of time on his hands.
Yeah. A couple things here. And then I have a tweet later from Naylor because the attendance in Toronto, I know it's the ongoing joke with the XFL and the MLSC, whatever. There was like 6,000 people in Toronto on Tuesday. And even watching the game last night, it's like, if you're watching this game and you go, oh, like our business model is fine. No, I mean, that was like scary attendance. But anyway, Red Blacks didn't hit capacity. Excuse me, Lions did, Ticats did, and the Stampeders did not. So, BC Lions are doing really well with that regime there right now, because they're obviously BC is a tighter, right, in terms of COVID restrictions. But that game last night, as we record, was scary in Toronto. Scary.
Speaking of your BC Lions that are not America's CFL team, they announced Monday that wide receiver Lucky Whitehead will undergo surgery after breaking his hand in last week's loss to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Expected to come back to the lineup 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, thankfully they're on the bye this week. Lucky is kind of their main guy right now, punt returner. Obviously, wide receiver, kind of the main Michael Riley's main target. Even in the game, like they almost just had him out there as a decoy, right? He couldn't. I mean, he was so wrapped up. It was like he had a club on his hand. Like, is that I get that you're trying to play the ball. Okay, well, maybe they would throw it to him, but it was clear that like Lucky couldn't catch anything. But it was almost like putting him in more danger by having him out there. Obviously, he's going to get that. I talked with Matt Baker about this. Devier Posey, I think he's going to be signed. Davis Sanchez, who he's with TSN, is reporting that he's being signed to kind of pick up that weight. Matt couldn't confirm any of that in the time that we recorded, which is great, but it sounds like that's in the process of moving forward with that. He was with the Ticats and was released, and they're going to pick him up. So
good to hear. Alouettes quarterback Adams has a comeback win over the Ticats, and it could be career defining. Head coach Kerry Jones said, "I thought it was big. He didn't want to miss the game. He wanted to be a part of it, and he ended up being a really part of it. He made some great plays down the stretch, some great decisions. I was impressed by how he came back."
Yeah, it was, this is the kind of thing. Vernon Adams, he follows me on Twitter. He's a good guy. Pick that name up.
You're dropping names.
But he got injured earlier in the game when they were playing Ticats. Came back out, like 2 drives down. They won with a game-ending field goal. This is the kind of stuff, Vernon Adams, kind of like Taylor Heineke, we were talking in the XFL, NFL stuff. He's just kind of an everyman. You watch his interviews, you can really relate with him, the emotions he goes through. But this is a good, being able to put the team on his back kind of like that and help propel them down the field is great. And I mean, I was watching the game, I was filming the wedding, and I'm like, oh my God, like Alouettes are getting blown out. And the next thing I know, they scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. I'm like, holy God, like it's crazy. So solid
comeback. Elks quarterback Trevor Harris slated to return against Winnipeg, according to a report from 630 CHED's Ched Dave Campbell. After this morning's walkthrough, Jamie Elizondo said quarterback Trevor Harris will be ready to return on Friday in Winnipeg against the Bombers. He missed the last 2 games with a neck injury. I also have a neck injury, talking about the Elks and their negative atmosphere so much.
Well, yeah. So, former XFL Taylor Cornelius had been the quarterback the last couple of weeks, filling in for Trevor Harris. He did really good the first week, really stumbled kind of last week against the Red Blacks. So I think they're going to be happy to get Trevor Harris back. But it's one of those like CFL things where kind of like the Bo Levi thing here that we're going to talk about. Trevor Harris was said to be going to be out 6 weeks. 2 weeks he's back. I'm like,
the culture.
I'm sorry. I'm not risking anything for like the CFL shortened season. I don't know. That's the same with Bo Levi. I'm like, if Bo needs to sit out the season, let Jake Mayer take this and go for it. I just don't understand this. Like, we're not, what are we fighting for here to, be slightly better in the 14-game season when Calgary's already, right? Edmonton's already, like, why are we fighting this at this point?
Culture. It's the culture they want. Bo Levi Mitchell didn't want to be selfish, so he took himself out of the game on the final drive after re-aggravating his shoulder. It's something he's been avoiding talking about, but he says, it's something I've been avoiding talking about with you guys. It's definitely something that's been sore, something that's bothering me. And he took a hit on it, and apparently he said he didn't feel like he had the pop in it.
But this is the thing. He had the broken leg. They bring him back now. I mean, Bo needs some time off. I just don't get, like, Calgary is in very, very, very dire straits. let Jake Maier play, let Bo rest up. There's nothing worth like injuring any of these players. I just don't understand that. Like the CFL, where it's half your year career, right? This isn't like, you're not doing this 12 months out of the year. I mean, Bo gets paid more than others, but I just don't get like going out everywhere to hurt yourself. This is where I said that per friend of the show, Daniel Austin, today, Levi said, it feels effing good with a smile. Let's go. When they were asking him about his shoulder. But I think
you say he needed some time off. They had a whole year of time off there, Reed.
Well, but he got injured he got hit in like one of the earlier games.
I know, I'm kidding. I'm throwing some shade.
This is
my shade.
Yeah, this is our last thing before we go to break here. This was posted at CFL today on Twitter. We're friends. So the Grey Cup and the finales are both on Sundays. Why would you not have the Grey Cup? I mean, we're already booked. We're not changing anything now, but why wouldn't you have had that on a Saturday? Not compete against the NFL. You still have a whole slate of NFL games on Sunday.
That's a good question. It's a valid question. You wouldn't be going up against any. You could bring in the American. You saw what happened with the other game the other night. Americans were tuning in to watch that.
250,000 people.
Put the Grey Cup on ESPN on Saturday, and guess what?
But then we're fighting, college, we're fighting traffic, we're fighting the weather, we're fighting people on vacation. I mean, I hear a lot of excuses about why people don't watch CFL games. Right. Anyway, so we'll toss a break here, but tons of XFL stuff. We're going to do all the XFL stuff. Oh, is that tossed a break? Okay.
Yeah, you just tossed.
Well, coming up, so we have wonderful Jeff Hamilton, Chris Walby, who wants to steal my wife, and then Matt Baker with the BC Lions.
And that FCF news, joy.
Don't you go anywhere. Well, Jeff Hamilton, so excited to have you back on today. I've been busy, and now we're getting back into hockey season again. So I'm sure you're busy on both ends of the spectrum. How is everything going for you?
Everything's good. It's like you said, it's kind of busy season. You have the football ramping up, CFL football ramping up as we head into the playoffs. And of course, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, is being more than just relevant in this league right now. And then the Winnipeg Jets are obviously the big ticket in town, and training camp is coming to a conclusion, and we're getting these last preseason games in, and then the season ramps up. So it really is an exciting time for this city, exciting time for my job. I'm one of those guys that gets to cover both. So just a busy season, but a fun one nonetheless.
Yeah, not too bad to have Winnipeg as like the franchise leader here in the CFL right now. Like we have friend of the show, Tim Baines, covering the Red Blacks, right? I mean, certainly a little more prestige covering the Blue Bombers, right?
Well, it's funny too, because I did mention the Jets are the big ticket, and for a long time there, like the Bombers were, how do you put this? It was a tough go to compete with them, right? It was tough for ticket sales. It was tough for a lot of different things. Of course, the 2019 Grey Cup helped. Certainly, it put them, I don't want to say put them on the map, just made them even more relevant in the city amongst fan base. But then this year has just been kind of taken off. Like you almost you have this mix of the Bombers doing really, really well, obviously at 7-1, and not really looking like they're going to slow down and possibly repeat all these things. But you also have the lost season in 2020 that kind of ramped up that love, and so now you have football back, and not only is football back, but football is fun to watch because these guys are winning. And I mean, and one other thing I'll say about that is I was talking to some buddies yesterday. We used to write these stories about the Bombers, how bad home field advantage was for them. And I remember the headlines. It's not so home sweet home and whatever. And now you look back over the last couple of years, and they've won 15 of the last 16 games at home. So that's resulted in fans caring more, attending games, doing those things. So it really is it's a good place to be as far as CFL coverage, because as you mentioned, my friend too, Tim Baines, I don't envy that day in and day out situation. But I guess they did beat the Elks last weekend, so he did get to change up the narrative a little bit, at least for 1 week.
Yeah, the last time we talked, I don't think we knew if there would be a CFL season, right? I was trying to remember about, there was a lot of issues, right? So, now we are kind of midway through week 10 here. How have you thought that the season has gone so far? We've had, obviously there's been ups and downs. Certain weeks have been better than others.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, because I don't want to, I think it's been great in the sense that I think, you see that appreciation not just in Winnipeg, but in other pockets. There is, I really do think that the product is different this year. And I don't know if it's the layoff. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if it's COVID protocols or a combination of all of them. But we really the league didn't really hit the ground running, in my opinion. I felt like there was a lot of it wasn't a lot of fun games. Scoring was significantly down. I remember doing a story. It was 15 points, fewer points per game through the first 4 weeks than in previous years. And so I think it kind of had a slow start. We finally got that uptick going. It's interesting too, because you have the Red Blacks kind of in the basement with the Elks now and the Bombers up top. And then there's a whole bunch of teams that I still think we're trying to figure out what exactly they are. You look at Hamilton, they've been playing better, but there's also been, they've had to deal with injuries at their quarterback position. What is Montreal, right? I mean, they're a high scoring team, but it's every week we seem to talk about how Vernon Adams is, is frustrating one week and then dynamic the next week. I mean, there's just so many different teams. Toronto, Saskatchewan. I mean, Saskatchewan looked like they were going to be world beaters at the beginning. Then they went through injuries, and now they're now we're wondering if they're going to hover around 500, depending on what Cody Fajardo shows up. So anyways, that's a long roundabout way of saying I wouldn't say bad. I'd say it was a bit of a slow start, but now I feel like there's been so much drama in this league, and it's you just remember how great the drama is. It's it's not just what happens on the field in the CFL. What happens off the field is almost just as fun to cover, and I'd imagine for fans almost just as good to watch, I guess, unless you're an Elks fan for that matter.
Yeah, I want to talk a couple different controversies here. First off, what is your take on Cody Fajardo in this? He comes out, it's the heel wrestler, right? He's throwing his teammates under the bus. He comes out, apologizes. I just had an article from 3 Down today. It says he spazzed out like a child on the sidelines. What do you make of this Rough Riders Cody Fajardo thing?
It's funny because I think Cody Fajardo is great for the league. I think he's a terrific quote. I think he's a good guy, but I'm not a Fajardo believer. I haven't been one. I thought he played super well in 2019. There was certainly, there's nothing to take away from his play, but there were circumstances that allowed for him to be in a position to be the West nominee for most outstanding player. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell, being injured, Mike Riley playing on a garbage team. There was just so many factors that played in. Andrew Harris getting his suspension, that allowed for him to kind of, rise, I guess, if you will. And again, I'm not taking away from his play because it's certainly deserving, but I just have this, and I've written in my weekly column, CFL Rundown, I have this Cody Fajardo back and forth where I'm right about him and then I'm wrong about him and then I'm right about him and then I didn't write about him at all. And so I don't know, I still feel he's done one season in the CFL, and this year, is he getting exposed? I don't think so. We've seen some really good things from him. We've definitely seen that leadership capabilities from him, where he'll put the team on his back and run for important yards and, those kind of things that really endear yourself to your teammates. But then you see kind of the stuff where he's coming out and he's apologizing. It's what's the deal? Are we kind of focusing too much on this? And is he too nice of a guy? I don't know. Anyways, I'm not to say I'm not a fan of Cody Fajardo. I just feel like some of the coverage of him since his rise in 2019 has almost kind of been the savior of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And now we're seeing him not with a ton of weapons at receiver, an inability to connect on that deep ball. And now these kind of little things in between where he's apologizing and and just kind of doing stuff that you have to do in Riderville, I guess. But overall, I don't know if I even answer the question for you, Reed, but I do think that Cody is, he's a good player. I don't know what kind of player he is yet. I don't know if he's necessarily shown that after 1.5 seasons as a starter.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's easy when the sun's shining, right? And it's easy to kind of, Rough Riders came out strong, right? They're winning. And then, they've had some adversity lately, but, it wasn't a great game that he played last week when all these comments came out. And you see that a lot in the NFL with the quarterbacks where it just seems like they take a little bit more of the weight on them of it was my bad. I very rarely do you see it I need to have more weapons. My receivers need to do their job. I just don't remember that coming out a lot. I mean, I understand frustrations, but you're the quarterback in Saskatchewan. I mean, I just have to imagine the media pressure there is a little less in the scheme of the football landscape happening in October of 2021.
Well, and that's it. I mean, like, so I don't even know. I think it's an inner pressure he puts on himself. Like, I don't think it's one of those things that like the media is hammering him, because if you look at the media, they love Cody Fajardo. I mean, they write, marvelous things about him, not just as a football player, but, but what he does in the community, all these things, and all those things are valid. Like, I mean, he is a stand-up guy. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But even just to touch on your comment about like, how often do you see that? I can think back in a couple different quarterbacks. Trevor Harris is one of them. Trevor Harris would be the guy who would be like, he'd point fingers, yada, yada, yada. And then he'd wrap up an interview saying, I need to be better. You know what I mean? So it's like, he would be pointing the finger and then he would wrap it up by saying, well, it starts with me. You know what I mean? And here's the thing. He's not the first person, Cody Fajardo, to be kind of like persecuted for it from fans, because they hear those things and they want their quarterback, like you said, to kind of put it on their shoulders, right? They get all the praise, they get all the, they're the highest paid player, obviously. They get all the praise when things are going well, when wins are happening. But when they're losing, it's like, I guess fans just want them to to own it. And so, like, we've seen that with Trevor Harris. Henry Burris is another guy. I'm not saying Henry Burris was a guy who was like, calling out his players, but he was very animated on the sideline. He was very emotional. Like, he would, in interviews, he would share. So you could see those kind of situations. And I liken it to maybe, Cody's animation on the sidelines. Like, to me, I don't read a lot into that. These guys are teammates. Anyone who's played organized sports understands that, you go to war with each other every week, and like, emotions are going to fly over and you're going to say some things. Now, I don't know if Cody's comments about his receivers necessarily hit home, like with those guys. Like, I don't know if that more or less him reading on social media that he shouldn't be doing this, and now he's out front, kind of smoothing the surface and just letting people know that, like, we came to work the next day and it's no big deal. But as a quarterback, as a leader on this team, I need to recognize that my comments matter, and I'm going to, try to rectify them. Again, I kind of find the whole like apology thing like a little much, but at the same time, if you're looking at, if he's personally looking at his situation and knowing that he needs to kind of address this to ease things out, and because things aren't exactly going great over there, then that's what he's got to do. And I think that's why he did it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like a WWE heel turn thing where they, it's like the conflicted heel, and I'm going out and I'm going to hit the guy with the steel chair, and then, I didn't really mean to do that. And the next week, it really is like this. I'm very much here for the Cody Fajardo heel turn right now. I think it's very interesting, and it certainly, adds spice to what, he is just kind of a good looking nice guy.
Well, I like that it banged up his his good boy image. Yeah. Like, I was gonna tweet out yesterday, didn't, so whatever. But like, I kind of want to see more bad boy Cody Fajardo. Like this whole thing, like white picket fence. Just kind of good guy. Situation. Like, this is football. Like, I kind of like to see a little bit of passion. So I'm there with you. Yeah. That's what you were saying when I interrupted you.
No, that's exactly. I want to get your thoughts too. The episode's titled like Edmonton's worst week ever, right? It began last week with a loss to the Red Blacks, which I think surprised everybody. Obviously everything going on with the firing of Eddie Steele, right, and all that stuff. So what do you make of kind of the Edmonton stuff right now?
Edmonton's been a circus all year. I mean, like, this isn't like, it hasn't been one of those things where, like, great title to an episode, because it has been, a bad week. And you just kind of wonder, like, how many lows is this team going to hit? I mean, all the stories coming out. I mean, the Eddie Steele one's interesting. Now, there's been lots of talk about that, lots of opinions coming from, all sides about whether or not, he should have free speech and all these things. Here's my take on it. His firing was unjust, because his job is to say he's paid to share his opinion. He's paid to use his insight, all those things he has at his disposal as a former player, obviously on that team, only 2 years removed, to share that insight. The reality is, though, it was predictable. The firing was absolutely predictable. And I'm not, again, saying it's predictable is not, I'm not agreeing with it, but the reality is, and, this word media gets tossed out a lot, and like, what is media? Is media YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that stuff? Is media, hardcore journalists, investigative stuff? Is media, Sportsnet, TSN, in this case, CHED, teams that have, deals with their teams, to, to broadcast the games. And so like, I've seen this side being like, they pay big money to have the privilege of calling these games. Well, yeah, they do, but that agreement works both ways. And it works both ways in a number of ways in that, okay, they pay for access. They pay to talk to the coaches at certain times. They, these new, whether it's a radio or TV organization, if a story breaks in their respective city and they didn't get it, they call the team and want to know why they didn't get it. So that's the benefit on the thing side. The other give is you don't make comments that the general manager and vice president of football operations should take a hike. Like it's just like you have to. And the reality is, and I'm in a luxury where I can come out here and say whatever the heck I want, knowing that my work, we're arm's length away. We don't have any affiliation. Will back me up. You do not have that backing when you're the team broadcaster when you go over the line. Now, straddling that line, and there's a lot of guys that do it who are color analysts or analysts in general on the shows, they kind of ride that line. So, but all that being said, it's just an added thing that like it just goes to this like thin skin paranoia title that the Elks have adopted all season long. So when you get rid of a guy who talks negatively of you, you're getting rid of him because you don't want the negative publicity, but you're creating even more negative publicity because he's now going to go out and share how big of a clown show you guys are. And that's exactly what we're having. But I mean, just from the beginning, like the Elks have been the team that's the least vaccinated, this whole last week thing. I mean, this doesn't even count for the worst week of the Elks. Brock Sunderland coming out with a statement about his vaccination status and all these things. It's just kind of like no details. Just this is what we've been hearing. So I add to the paranoia. Like how you even have to address that, I don't know. But it comes down to the players. I mean, Trevor Harris, like him having a neck injury, practicing for 2 days, not like that was just like there's lots of speculation. And now you take speculation with a grain of salt, why he was out and what the situation is with him and all those things. But at the same time, like you're welcoming too much of it. And the Joey Moss thing that's come out, like how bad can it possibly get? Like that's all is the worst one. And the worst part about it is if you're Brock Sunderland is it's all being pointed at you. There's no other names. Like Jamie Elizondo should get some heat. We talk about comments about owning, like the coach should own it. We've had him come out a couple times this year and point fingers. So it's just, I feel like I've been talking forever here, but there's just so many things in Edmonton that have gone wrong. And this doesn't even count the whole cutting players in training camp and then calling them not cultural fits. Like no one does that. Nobody does that in the CFL. Even if they aren't a cultural fit, maybe a guy talks too much. Maybe a guy isn't gelling with the rest of the position group. Maybe this guy is just more into it than himself or anything. You get rid of him. You don't become the organization that releases a guy and then stomps on him with some kind of title like they did with Kenny Stafford, who's now with another organization.
Well, and they came out and immediately scored against that organization last week. When they played, it's so much. Can you, we know our story, right? We're coming into this league. Can you explain why the Joey Moss situation is such a big deal?
Joey Moss is an institution. He's, he represents the best part of society. This is a guy who was born with Down syndrome, was, the story he's told is in the 80s, I think it was his sister, one of his relatives was dating Wayne Gretzky or something. I hope I got that right, but that started the connection. And he became a presence inside the Oilers and Edmonton football teams dressing rooms. Like he was a staple. He was a guy that and when I say the best of society, I mean, he had mental disabilities, right? I mean, this is a guy that everybody embraced. They propped him up. They just the life lessons that come out of meeting people like Joey Moss are so massive. It's insane. And not just grip, like you talk about the players, like the way Gretzky speaks about him, the way from Gretzky to the guy who spent 3 weeks with the Edmonton Elks or, would speak about Joey Moss the exact same way because the respect factor was so high there. And that's just the players. He gripped an entire province. And I'm talking about him passionately and I don't know Joey Moss, never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I know the effect that somebody like him can have and did have in Edmonton. And for a guy to come in a CFL organization and ban him from the locker room. Now, we've been getting conflicting things here. That whole statement thing is ridiculous too, because they don't outright deny the claim. They just say no one, kicked him out of the organization or didn't want him to be part of the organization. All I can say is if that is even close to being true, like, where do you start? You know where you start? You fire Brock Sunderland because he doesn't represent the community or the province.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, even if it wasn't, at that point you get like ticky-tack, like, well, we didn't actually ban him. It's like, well, no, if it came out that it was like you didn't want him around and we're kind of pushing him out.
Or if you felt like he was a distraction in the room and you made this rule, like you could be around us, but you can't come into the room. That's to me, end of story.
Yeah, and just to circle back on the Eddie thing too, it's just weird. It's this mix of like being able to cover leagues and then trying to be in with the leagues, right? And I see that all the time in every league from the CFL down, and that's been like our problems with 3 Down Nation from the beginning. Is it's like you want to be the PR for the league, but then also be critical, and it is this fine line of like, well, what can we cover and say and still not get like our privileges revoked, right? Because words have meaning, right, and words have power, and you can say things like he was critical of Edmonton, and then things can happen, right? And that can be unjustified. Both of those things can happen. You can have the right to say it, and then also they have the right to react, even if it's unjustified. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. And like, just to be clear, I mean, this stuff happens all the time in every other organization. It just doesn't necessarily lead to termination. Now, there's a few different factors in that. One, I think Eddie, and you know what? I think Eddie's handled it great. I mean, if you read some of his statements, you read some of his, like he kind of came out and spit fire there for a little bit, but also pulled back on the idea that like, he'd wish that he understood the situation a little bit new. Like he wasn't going to sit there and say, I'm a new guy, so like I should get a free pass or whatever like that. But I also think, and I'm careful to throw blame here because I just, I think there is blame all over the place. Like, should have Eddie known, what that line was? Maybe, probably, you know what I mean? Like this whole idea that like you were a player at one point, you knew how to straddle a line. Like if you didn't like what was happening in your football organization, you didn't go out to the media and say it as a player. So, this is obviously a much different role. It's a much different situation where he's actually encouraged to share his opinion. But I also think that, he probably should have been trained better. You know what I mean? Like for somebody who, you come on, and obviously in this case it'd be Ched. Like this guy comes in, he's now an analyst. You like all these things that he brings to the table, as I mentioned before. Obviously his connection to the organization and to players still. So he has that pipeline of information. You kind of have to say, okay, let's straddle the line here. You can be critical of the general manager. You can do it, but you have to do it in a way where you're not calling for his head and suggesting Chris Jones should come back and take over the organization, a coach who got you a Grey Cup and then packed up his coaching staff and moved moved to SAS. So, like to me, it's like you got to find that fine line. And it is a challenge, I imagine, for a former player because you kind of want to be, you don't want to be soft-edged either. It's like, this guy knows more, whatever. So it's unfortunate he didn't get the opportunity to, because you can clearly tell he's learning from his experience. It's unfortunate he didn't get the opportunity to continue on. But from what I understand, what we've been reading, like, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's just going to be talking from a different venue.
Gotcha. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The last thing, I mean, it's all this drama this week. We have you on, whatever. The county Lawler of everything, right? From what I can tell, everything was handled wonderfully, right? The infraction happened, the team came out, all that stuff. I did think it was weird that CFL last night still had his photo on the marquee picture for the Friday night matchup or whatever the game is. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I feel like people have really been giving Kenny a hard time, which I don't know. I don't know if that's justified.
Very, very, very difficult question in my opinion, because I think there's so many moving parts to a situation like this. And that's not to, deflect my opinion. I'm obviously completely against drinking and driving. This is my community, right? It wasn't, it directly impacts, people who live here. Yes, there was no injury, but there was a single vehicle accident. His obviously, what and how he did it, we don't know, but he was a danger to the road. And so, when I say case by case, like had he gotten an accident, heaven forbid, had he killed someone, we'd be having a completely different conversation. And I wonder if that should matter. I wonder if that, if you're going to call things inexcusable, or you're going to call things, use those kind of words, unforgivable, all these things, well, then they're unforgivable. So how do you reach that place? I think what works for him here, or was in his advantage here, is that there's been precedence in this league. And as early as 2018 with Charleston Hughes, and, in that case, the Riders came out, said he was going to play, that week. And then more information came forward, and turns out that, he denied a breathalyzer, which was suddenly an infraction to the reputation of the Rough Riders organization. And then he got that 1-game suspension, and the league didn't add anything. So I think the Bombers are looking at the situation as, okay, he made a stupid decision. No one was hurt. We're going to immediately suspend him. And, the 1 game is the precedent. Now, I'm up for anybody who disagrees with the 1 game. I'm with people who agree with it. I find myself straddling a line, because I don't know if zero tolerance, whether it's, this kind of situation, again, it varies. Domestic abuse is another one that gets brought up. Like, should a guy get cut, lose his income? And the reason why I bring that up is I've talked to experts in the past around domestic violence, done investigations with this league regarding that exact topic, and they don't believe in zero tolerance. They don't believe that just cutting a guy's paycheck, income, yada, yada, is going to make the situation better. So I think if you can translate that kind of education piece to Kenny in the drinking and driving, it's one thing if he just gets the game and his attitude's crap and, all these things. He seems extremely remorseful. And I hope that he finds some way to make up for that blunder beyond just a 1-game suspension and whatever. If he can, he doesn't have, claim to have an alcohol problem. I don't believe he does have an alcohol problem. I think he made a stupid decision under the influence. I think you can make the argument he has an alcohol problem if you get behind a wheel, but I think he needs to do something to show this community that what happened was a massive mistake, and not just words, not just emotions. And I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's working with groups. Maybe it's doing something that at the end of the day, you're in a lot of trouble here. It's not like he gets the 1-game suspension and everything gets figured out. I mean, he's in trouble with the law. Yeah. So what I think and what I hope for is, get him back on track here, but get him to give back in some way. I'm not going to create the answers for him. He needs to do that and just kind of show that, what he did was a bad error in judgment, and what he's doing now to prevent that from ever happening again.
Yeah, I think, it's one of those, life's really long and lots of things happen. And I think that at least in the States, DUI is a huge financial cost, right? It's tens of thousands of dollars, all these different things. I just don't like people beating up people online about that stuff when it's like I got a mountain of crap I got to deal with here. Like, I don't know if I need mean tweets about this as well. Like, that's where I'm at, is that I feel like at least the CFL did handle this correctly, right? And the team came out, and like you said, in the past, maybe there had been issues where other players hadn't been. Like, that's my thing, is I feel bad for the guy, and I don't know. He seemed really remorseful.
Well, you don't sit on it, right? Like, a lot of teams sit on it, and then when you sit on it, you're trying to figure out what to do. You're weighing options back and forth, and then somebody else finds out.
Yeah.
And then somebody else finds out, and it's not you releasing it. Well, guess what? That's brutal. And it's a brutal, you made it twice as worth. And the other thing, and I don't want to throw in controversy a little bit here, but what's the penalty if Kenny Lawler isn't leading the CFL in receiving yards? You know what I mean? Like, if he's a practice roster guy, do we even find out about it? And B, we sure as hell don't see him next week. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's the reality, and that's the reality in professional sports. So, that part plays into, but I'm with you, Reed. I mean, I'm in the sense of, like, everyone's got to share an opinion and everyone's got to argue on social media about something. That's what it's for. That's the platform to have it. But it's just one of those things that, I don't know. It's a weird balancing act of feeling sorry for him, but also understanding what he did was horrendous. So, yeah.
Well, it's also like that when the AC Leonard, right, when he had the whole urine thing and yelled, but then the team's like, okay, you're good. Like, if this is someone that maybe isn't as delivering as well, right? That was the debate with that as well, is if you have a player that's maybe not as excellent. Last question before we go. We've had all this drama. What game are we looking forward to this week? What are you excited about? Are you excited about the Blue Bombers? I mean, there's got to be a thrashing of the Elks. I mean, what game are you looking forward to this weekend? We have 2 games on Monday, Thanksgiving Monday. I'm learning this is a thing. I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, this is a thing. Yeah. The games, I would say, like, kind of when you look at it, I mean, Toronto and Hamilton's always a good one because of, of their provincial proximity. But it's a weird one, right? Because those couple teams play twice in a week. So I think, like, I'm not trying to be biased here just because I'm a Bombers, beat reporter, but I really do think that's an interesting game because of everything we've been talking about. Like, to me, this is a massive character game for the Elks. Like, we're going to, like, you've had to deal with all these things all season long. You lost to the Bombers, then you lost to the Red Blacks. Now you're back up against the first place Bombers. Like, what team are we going to see? Trevor Harris is now back under center. Again, all the drama, all the controversy, everything that's wrapped around that organization for the last 6 whatever weeks or more. Yeah. What are they going to do this weekend? Like, what are they going to do Friday night in Winnipeg? And you know what? Like, the reality is it's any given Sunday. Any team can win anytime. Obviously, the Bombers are heavy favorites. But if I'm Edmonton, I'm looking at this game. I'm looking at all the outside noise. I'm looking at all the drama, all the fans got it. Not going to say all the fans are turning their backs, but it's not helping. If you can beat the Bombers on the road, you have the potential to flip the script here for you guys. Like, that's the reality of sports. So when I look at all these teams, there's some, again, the Hamilton Toronto is going to have some, massive implications for the standings, but at the end of the day, another one of those games is Ottawa. And, like, it's just, to me, I'm looking at more so, not so much how good the Bombers are going to be on Friday, what answer the Elks are going to have against the CFL's best team.
Yeah, I mean, they say sometimes drama galvanizes teams. I mean, they do. I've heard that's a thing sometimes, so we'll see. I do think that's a heavy lifting, but I appreciate you selling the matchup. That'll be good.
Well, and the other one too is, though, like, I mean, I shouldn't say, I'd say that's Saskatchewan and Calgary games. Calgary, like, so whoever watches the CFL, like, Calgary's in a very, very unique situation that they haven't been in for a decade, and that's desperate. So you got 2 desperate teams. You got the drama coming out of Saskatchewan with the 50-50 balls and Cody Fajardo apologizing and all these things. And then you got Calgary who's hanging on. And you're going to get the best from Calgary. Bo Levi Mitchell's back in. He said, let's effing go. My shoulder's fine. Let's put this to rest. He's confident. So that's another one that I would be looking at and saying, okay, this will be a good matchup too.
Cool. Well, Jeff, thank you so much again for spending the time. Sorry, we always have, it's all this myriad of drama every time we have you on, and before it was all the stuff with the league. But I appreciate you and no holds out and saying everything and tackling all these issues. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, no problem. You know what? That's why I love this league. The drama is what makes it fun. The on-field excitement is good. We have a great game here in Canada, but it's the off-field drama that's what gets your juices going. That's what everyone wants to talk about. And so that's the beauty of this league, even though sometimes it seems a little Mickey Mouse with some of the stuff that happens, but gotta love them.
It's good. Thanks again. Well, Chris Walby, I will tell you, I can always tell when we get fun, exciting guests on because I post our previews on Facebook. Tremendous support for you coming on this week. People seem very excited. What do you say about that?
You know what, buddy? I've done 10 years of CBC television up in Canada. I've done 6 years with TSN Sports where we covered the Bombers exclusively. I've had a lot of fun. You know what? And I'm getting old. I think people just feel sorry for me right now. I lost my hair at an early age, and I think they're just feeling sorry for me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, former Blue Bomber. I tell you, so a little backstory. I had a standing bet last week with CFL Hall of Famer Milt Stegall that the BC Lions were going to beat Winnipeg. And clearly, so my Twitter profile photo right now is a logo of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers because, as we all know, they lost. What did you make of that trouncing of a game that the BC, lost at home? Winnipeg came in and kind of wiped the floor with them.
You know what? I was very surprised, to be honest with you, big man. I thought, I actually was one of those guys that thought BC was going to have a great game. I like Michael Riley. You have to call Michael now. No more Michael. I like that. I like the fact that they had Lucky Whitehead, who we used to play for the Bombers, and he was having an outstanding year. I didn't like the fact that they made the whole game about Lucky, and I kept saying I did a show before the game, and I went, make Lucky unlucky. Not that I jinxed the poor guy, but, obviously he breaks his wrist. Got a great hit by Brandon Alexander, our safety. No, listen, I was surprised, but then I wasn't surprised because the Bombers there's no chink in the armor. The one thing I thought was going to happen, I want to see what their place kicker could do. Because remember this kid named Ali Markcast played in the XFL, and he was 0 for 3 in his first game. And usually if you're in the NFL or any other big league, you're gone. You got an apple and a roadmap, right? Well, this guy got your second chance. Now he kicked indoors. Now he's going to have to see. That's what he does in Winnipeg where the wind swirls here. We got one of the windiest cities here, and the winds are blowing right now as we speak, even though it's beautiful out. And I want to see what he does. But that's about the only thing that I know that really could come back and hurt this team because their offense is phenomenal. Their defense is phenomenal. And like I said, their cover teams and everything else, the special teams, other than the field goal kicking, has been subpar. But, when you look at and then, of course, you probably know that they lost their leading receiver this week with a, impaired charges, which is a terrible thing. And they just plug a guy and Calvin McKnight comes in now. So, I don't know where and how this team will lose unless they self-destruct or injuries take place.
Yeah, we were my wife's good friend got married last Saturday, so I'm a wedding videographer, so I was filming that. But Friday night we were at the rehearsal dinner, and I had the ESPN Plus on my phone, for the Lions Winnipeg, and that first 2 and out, where they just couldn't get anything going, and I thought, oh man, this is trouble because BC always starts strong, they always come out the gate, and from that first drive, I thought, man, this is we're in for a world of hurt all night.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I was hoping. I was actually excited about this game, and that's what I wanted. I wanted a close game, but they just dominated. They sacked Michael Riley 6 times. It seems like every team in the CFL right now has got issues on the O-line, except for the Bombers O-line, which have not missed a game in 2 years. The same group, and anybody that knows football knows chemistry on that O-line. To be able to coordinate, to talk, to communicate. It's so key. And so when you're looking at the Bombers O-line, they've had these guys playing for 2 years now since the Grey Cup ran in 2019. And they're moving along. They're big, they're strong. Stanley Bryant, a 2-time outstanding O-lineman. They could have a team of 5 All-Stars this year.
Well, and that's even something, in the NFL they talk about all the time with, players being swapped out and, this guy had never played left tackle before. We're moving him to the other side or whatever. But it's so to have that even in the CFL is so much more remarkable to kind of have that chemistry going, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I'll tell you what, I had a couple cups of coffee in the NFL. I tried out in 1989, and I should have signed a contract with San Fran. They offered me a contract, didn't sign. I went to Dallas. I tried out in San Diego, and I went to Arizona or Phoenix at the time. I came back here, and the offer was pulled away. But you know what? It's funny. Back when I played, it's a two job year, right? You play the game, then you go. I used to teach school, but down there now, your offensive line are probably the second highest paid people beside the quarterback. So it just tells you how much people now value. I used to hate that term. You guys are unskilled. Unskilled. Screw that. I tell you what, if I don't got a quarterback and if I don't have a line in front of me, you know what's going to happen? That guy's going to be counting clouds all day. He's not going to get, he's not going to be good. So I love the fact that the O-line is finally getting recognition in every league.
Well, and especially where BC just they just couldn't give Riley any time. It just seemed like the whole night he's and. They talk about, okay, Michael Riley is a fast man. He is, but he's also, he's getting older. He shouldn't have to run, he shouldn't have to run for his life, every other play. So, well,
he does. That's the thing. I remember Michael when he played for Edmonton. He's stud. I know he's played great in BC, but having said that, I know, they've had to revamp that O-line. That was a problem last year when he got I think he was sacked the most in the CFL. So it's not good. But having said that, man, I still think BC's got a chance to be good. But having said that, I'm going to reiterate myself. I don't know if anybody can beat the Bombers right now. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play Edmonton tomorrow night because Edmonton actually gave us a pretty good battle. If it wasn't for those 2 turnovers in a row that led, the quick pick 6 for touchdown, and then obviously Willie Jefferson. I think you guys, I don't know why Willie Jefferson is even in this league. He should be in the NFL. Strip sack, and then Adam Bighill takes it for a touchdown. Those 2 plays or 2 series turned the tide of the game. So I didn't have Trevor Harris. They had a rookie and Taylor Cornelius. So I'm looking forward to this game with a little bit more anticipation that it will be a closer game, and we'll see what happens.
It's just, I want to talk about the game's previews to finish my thought on, you talk about, Winnipeg can't be stopped, right? They have so much momentum. Yeah. Is it just that chemistry, with the O-line, with the returning players? Because it seems like no other team is at all consistent at all, right? I mean, we're coming into this, CFL's talking about single game sports betting. We're trying to do fantasy, all these things. But yet, like, the Alouettes from week to week could be the best team in the league or the worst team in the league, right? So, I mean, why is it, but Winnipeg, it's like every week, that you at least know what you're getting with them.
You know what? In this league, in the Canadian Football League, you have to draft good Canadians. And Kyle Walters, the general manager, Wade Miller, who played. These guys all played football. Coach O'Shea, Michael O'Shea, they've all played. I mean, they understand that. And what they've done is created a culture where in the old days, it was basically at the end of the year, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. Well, now they'll get you jobs. Listen, they got a professional chef. These guys eat like kings now. I'm trying to sneak in the back door with my little carry bag, get some food. Oh, no, I can't get in there. But anyway, it's just a culture they created. They've got such a good bunch of guys, and everybody wants to play in Winnipeg now. I mean, they have signed more free agents and kept the nucleus of this team because nobody wants to leave because, you go to Toronto, BMO Field, right? You go to Edmonton. They got issues in Edmonton. BC is beautiful, Toronto, but the cost of living is high. So, I mean, if you can come to Winnipeg right now and you like water. We got tons of water. We tell these guys, hey, you like fishing? We got fishing here, boy, I tell you. Anyway, that's my rant.
No, but it seems, because obviously we're coming into this, we're the Americans, came into the XFL to the CFL stuff, but like it almost seems like it's unbalanced. Like Winnipeg is just heads and shoulders, like you said, from the organization down, the football team. It just is weird to me because then it's like you have these misfit teams, and then it's like there's only one. It seems very odd to me.
Yeah, it does. I mean, but that, again, to me, comes down to coaching. I mean, you got Jordan Younger, who's a secondary coach, played with the Argos, Toronto Argonauts. He's taken a bunch of guys. They got 3 rookies in that secondary. These guys have performed. But the front, if you look at anything on the Bombers, what they have is they got a guy named Willie Jefferson, I just mentioned before. You got a guy named Jackson Jeffcoat, whose dad is a Hall of Famer and played for Dallas Cowboys. These 2 guys could be in the NFL, in my mind. They shouldn't even be in this league, but they have such a good rapport, and they get so much pressure, and that helps the secondary. Plus, the biggest thing I think for Winnipeg right now, no, knock on wood, no injuries. They're being very, very healthy, and I tell you see Trevor Harris, Edmonton out, a lot of quarterbacks getting hurt. I think they've started 5 rookie quarterbacks this year already. So I mean, we are being on the right side of that for sure.
Talking about the game this week, right? Edmonton, coming in, they've struggled, obviously. So the title of our episode is Edmonton's worst week ever, right? It started with the loss to the Red Blacks last week. Now, all these different issues. What are you making of Edmonton, and is it too much for them to overcome and even like try to play some semblance of a football game with everything else going on?
No, I think Edmonton can be a very good football club. I think you can't look at them. I mean, they're like a sleeping giant. They've got talent. They just haven't figured out how to win. Win is like losing. Once you start losing the road, it just becomes natural. I think these guys right now, if you look at it, they got Darrell Walker. They got a bunch of studs on his team. Darrell Walker was one of the leading receivers. He's got big money in Edmonton. He hasn't even got a touchdown this year. That's crazy. I mean, you look at what they have on defense. They got a great defense, but they keep making stupid mistakes. Interceptions kill them. Turnovers. That game you mentioned just now against Ottawa was the sloppiest game I ever saw. I mean, they brought in a kid named Caleb Evans in Ottawa, threw for 3 touchdowns. Well, you saw yesterday, he's mortal now. He threw 3 interceptions in the loss against the Argos, who coincidentally are the only team to beat the Bombers this year. So, it's just one of those things. Man, I tell you what, I look at this team on Edmonton, talent-wise, on paper, they look pretty good. But I don't know if it's the head coach. I don't know if it's the system they're running, but they're just not very productive right now. But the fact is, Trevor Harris is back. Trevor Harris was leading the league in passing and passing percentage before he got hurt with his neck injury. Can he recoup? I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, you look at Bo Levi in Calgary, right? He pulled himself out of the game last week, said he's not feeling good. They still won the football game against Saskatchewan. But having said that, again, another injury to a key personnel. So we'll see what happens.
What do you, Argos last night, tremendous game, right? Obviously Chris Jones comes back, defensive. It didn't seem to me, as a McLeod Bethel Thompson fan, we did a whole episode about him. It didn't seem like he had that great of a game. I mean, it really seemed like the defense, you look at that scoreboard. Does Toronto have enough to challenge and really, now that they've getting all the pieces going?
I think so. You take a look who their general manager is, Michael Pinball Clemens, one of the stars of the CFL, one of the best speakers. I mean, we went down to Louisiana. Remember, we went down when the CFL played in Shreveport, Louisiana. We played in Birmingham, Memphis, Bulldog. We went all over the place. So we had a group of us, myself, Pinball Clemens, Matt Dunnigan, and we went down and talked to all the schools. We talked to a lot of communities about what the CFL could bring to the city. Well, you know what? You do not want to go behind Michael Clemens in a talk. He is eloquent. He has got more. I mean, he's talking about butterflies and cocoons, and I go up, and then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go. I'm not speaking. No, I don't want to speak because he's that good, man. But having to answer your question, Toronto's got some good players. I hope they can actually increase their fan base and get some people loving that, because right now that's the big thing, right? They're the biggest city. They call it the center of Canada universe, right? They just need to do some things, but I think they have a very good team. They signed a lot of guys, and right now they won against Ottawa, which is, I feel bad because Paula Police, the head coach there, was with Winnipeg, won a Grey Cup with us, and I just think they're not a very good football team. And I know they signed a guy named Duck Evans or something for
Duck Hodges, yeah.
So I want to see what he does. I mean, he's probably going to get closer to playing now because Caleb Evans they said right now he's mortal. He threw in 3 interceptions. So, but going back, Toronto, yes, I think Toronto, very good team. I don't know who else is. Montreal, maybe. Hamilton, we dismantled them. Hamilton has no O-line. They're horrible. Now, I know if they might be listening or watching your podcast, I love you guys, your O-line, but guess what? You suck. Anyway. I go on a rant all the time.
No, it's good. I mean, my one other thought about the game last night. I mean, not to hear, we all know the Toronto of the issue with attendance and all those things, but I mean, my God, you could count the fans in the stands last night. I mean, I was, and I understand it's a Wednesday. I understand it's midweek. I mean, I understand all these things, but I was like, I just can't imagine anyone watching that broadcast and being like, oh yeah, like our business model's great. Like we don't need to worry about. I mean, even Naylor was tweeting today about the XFL stuff again, which I didn't, want to like. But you're like, I just don't know how you look at that game. You're like, yeah, we're fine. Like we don't need to address any of these issues.
You know what? And it drives me nuts. And I mean, obviously going to Toronto and working the games when I worked for CBC, and going to the bars, going to local watering holes and having a couple cold ones, and people would say, no, we don't want to watch the game. Put on Buffalo. Put on there. See, this is a city has the Raptors, it has the Blue Jays, it has the Maple Leafs. Those 3 big sports teams are the heart of that city. The Argos are way, way down. You got the penthouse and you got the outhouse. That's where they are.
It just, I don't, and I say it seems like it's, everyone says online, you can't. We've heard the jokes before. We've heard all that. It's like, but that doesn't make it any less true or scary right now. What's going on?
No, you know what? I hope Toronto. I mean, we always said the 2 cities that need to come up are Toronto and BC, and obviously with the pandemic and the fact that I think in BC you can only have 12,000 fans right now still because of the pandemic. I don't know what the limit is in Toronto, but in the old days I remember going to BC was 50,000 all the time, every game, and Toronto was the same. It was always I hated the Sky Dome. I hated playing the Sky Dome because the field was so screwed up because he had the baseball and they had all these creases where a couple of my teammates blew their knees, caught their foot in where the seams were. So, I mean, but to me, I mean, I hope Toronto picks it up. I think they will. I think they're a very good football club. I really do. And I like with their leadership. Now, Ryan Dinwiddie is obviously a rookie coach. He was here with us with the Bombers, but I don't know. It's a crazy time, my friend.
One thing I really am curious to get your thoughts about, as someone that played right now you do broadcasting and things, on both sides of the ball, right?
Yeah.
Obviously all this stuff coming out with Edmonton, with Eddie Steele, all of that. Do you have any, any, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot with anything, but thoughts on that, just because you're in an interesting position, right? Where you're on both sides and kind of see, right? I mean, you've seen both sides of the ball.
Well, obviously Dwayne Mandrusiak, the equipment manager who had 49 years, was let go before his 50th year. That surprised the hell out of me. I was like, what the hell's going on here, man? This guy's been a legend. He's equipment guy forever. And then I haven't read this yet, but I saw there's a quote from Joey Moss. Joey Moss's family put a quote out, and I haven't read it yet, so I can't speak on that. But I met Joey Moss a couple of times in Edmonton, and he was just a great guy. Obviously with disabilities. But the team loved him. They just loved this guy. And then I'm blown away that hypothetically, and I can't speak because I don't know, the general manager, Brock Sunderland, said he's not allowed in the locker room anymore because he's a distraction. Obviously, he passed on, RIP, brother. But having said that, this story has come out. It's put an ugly face on that franchise right now, right? First off, we're doing a whole thing with they were the Eskimos. We had to change the name because we got to take care of that stuff right now, eh? So now they're the Elks. But yeah, speaking about those two things, and I don't know. I mean, they're pointing it right at the GM. Is it the GM? I don't know. I can't speak to it. I know that Eddie Steele lost his job on the radio because he went after him and said, you know what, this is a thing. But I can't speak to it. I'm not close to it. But I do know both of those guys very well, Dwayne Mandrusiak and Joey Moss. And I was surprised when I read about it. I knew about Dwayne because he got let go beginning of the year. Or last year. But Joey, I was surprised to hear about that. And that, to me, struck a bone. And I hope it's not true. Because I think that's just a terrible thing.
But you know what I'm saying with the Eddie thing, where it's so hard where you have your opinions, you have your thoughts, but then when you're paid to give those, and it's messy, right? Because with the radio station and how do you feel, when you go out and obviously you're, depending on like what agreements or arrangements or whatever, but when you're paid to give your opinions on things and it's like, do I need to watch what I say or?
Oh yeah. There's times you have to do that. You have to watch what you say. They'll tell you, watch your P's and Q's, make sure you don't talk about this thing. This is a situation we don't want to come up right now. I feel bad for Eddie. I mean, I know Eddie, a good guy, and I thought he did a great job. And that's right. When you put handcuffs on a guy, how are you supposed to, that's why I like these podcasts, because podcasts, you can basically say whatever you want.
So I do the
Bonfire Sports Show. And, one of the things he said when I started doing it is, just be who you are and just speak what you want. But even then, I still take into consideration, watch what you say. If you're not sure about it, don't get in there. Don't jump in right with both feet. Make sure you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, it could come back and bite you in the ass, right? So I don't want to have that happen to me. Do I think Eddie got treated unfairly? Yeah, I do. I think that whether his comments were true or not, I think the radio stations should still stick behind a guy like that. You should say, hey, listen, man, we hired you for your opinions, and now you're telling you can't speak what you think. He's not trying to be a shock jock. He's not trying to be a crazy guy. So, hopefully the station reconsiders and puts him back on the air. But, once they've made that decision, they're usually going in a different direction.
Yeah. It's just hard. I mean, it's one of those things you don't, you hire people, like you said, for their opinions, for their personalities, for their whatever. And then a lot of stuff comes along with that. I mean, we look at that even in the States, and, we had the whole stuff with like Stephen A. Smith came out and, he was talking about baseball stuff and how they should be able to speak English. And it was this whole big thing. And then, he's still, nothing happened with that. Right. I mean, he apologized, but it's one of those, it's hard where you want people that you want to create drama, but then it's like, well, not that kind of drama or not too much drama. It's hard.
Well, I think a lot of guys try and be like Howard Stern, right? Shock jock. Say what you feel like. You want to hear that guy's crazy. Like, I mean, he says whatever comes on his mind. A lot of it is right on the other side of the wall, but you know what? They love him. And he's making millions and millions of dollars doing that. Now, some guys say, well, you know what? I want to do that because that's how you get attention, right? If you're a little different, you don't want to be, and that's the biggest thing. You're talking about your point right here. If I come on and just speak bland, and I just talk bland, and I give you the general, okay, yeah, this team is very good. They pass for 200 yards. The quarterback is very good. You're like, get this guy off. You know what? Nobody wants to hear that jackass. Now, You talk a little bit, you have some fun with it. People want to listen to it, right? But I think so many guys are trying to do something different. But again, going back to Eddie Steele, spoke his mind, spoke from his heart. I guarantee you he knew something. He's not going to go out and make this kind of comment unless he doesn't have knowledge about what happened. Again, I can't speak to it because I'm not in Edmonton. I don't know the scenario there. But having said that, for a station, and I watched the after thing, and I read the comments, and they were like, you know what, this is ridiculous, man. And they're talking about the GM of the radio station, knowing full well what Eddie said was probably true, but because they have the radio rights, they don't want to lose it, because that's the big thing, right? And all of a sudden we gotta appease. And so what we have to do is we need a sacrificial lamb. Eddie, jump on the stake. Bye-bye, buddy. That's what happened.
Yeah. Getting back, it's hard. Getting back to football stuff before we let you go. I appreciate your time.
No problem.
So my wife famously, we watched a kickoff game this year, right? Winnipeg and Hamilton said, right. She goes, I want Winnipeg. The W looks very similar to University of Washington, where she, went to school.
Exactly. It is the same. Yeah.
So, now she is, of course, the number one Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, right? I mean, but
got a good wife. You got a good wife, my brother.
So, it's them and the Pack here going to the Grey Cup. I mean, who do you see on the other side of that matchup here? And we're going to be in Hamilton. We have our ticket spot. Flights. We got to get our game tickets. But what do you see on the other side of that football field here in December?
That's a good question. That's a great question, because we talked about the aforementioned Argonauts. It was the only team that beat the Bombers, right? We talked about Hamilton, who just lost their first game in 2 years at home. I think they still can be a very good football team. Then you look at Montreal, who we haven't played yet. Vernon Adams Jr. and they got some talent. They got a good defense. So I think the East is right up for grabs. So you know what? I know everybody's picking Hamilton right now because Hamilton went there last year to the Grey Cup of 2019, actually. But I don't know. I really don't. I'm having a hard time thinking about what you could be, because I watched Montreal with a great comeback win in the last game against Hamilton. And then I look at Argos and the way they dominated yesterday, but Ottawa's just, I feel bad for Ottawa. Ottawa's just not very good. And then I look at Toronto, who will be playing soon. So, yeah, I don't know, man. That's a good question. Who do you think? I mean, you're a guy watching it, besides your wife, who's got the smartest. Your wife's beautiful, man. She likes the Bombers. Right on. What's your wife's name?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. For the Wizard of Oz. She knows what's going on.
Yeah, Dorothy and Helen. Her parents liked older sounding names.
You got kids?
We don't yet, no.
Come on, man. Get off the broadcast. Start making some kids. I got a whole pack of them. You want me to rent you a couple?
Yeah. I think Toronto, if they can get the offensive going. I mean, last night was, if the offense can live up to what special teams and defense provided last night, I think that Toronto good. Like I said, we are McLeod Bethel-Thompson stands. I mean, I followed him even in the spring league here last year when he was playing in the offseason. So, I mean, McLeod's our guy. So, and Paul, my co-host, is a Toronto Argonauts fan. I'm a BC Lions fan. So I am angry at the world right now, but and with Lucky Whitehead and everything else. So yeah, I think Toronto's looking good, but yeah, I think it's Winnipeg's world, and we're just living in it right now. So
it's funny you talk about McLeod Bethel-Thompson. I've always been a big fan. He led the league in passing last year. That year he played. For some reason, he's just got that asterisk against him, and they signed Nick Arbuckle, who I'm not impressed with at all. I mean, yeah, he played with Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie was his coach in Calgary. I haven't seen him do anything. McLeod, to me, is a pure passer. And this league is a passing league with only 3 downs. To me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's won 2 in a row now, McLeod Bethel-Thompson. How do you pull him now and go, okay, Nick, we're paying you the money. You're playing now. So, I mean, that's a different situation. But I like McLeod. I'm the same with you, man. Even though I don't like BC like you do. So I like your wife, Dorothy. Dorothy, I love you, man.
Chris, this has been great. I hope we can keep you in the Rolodex and call you back. I really appreciate you taking the time,
brother.
And even though my Twitter logo is a Winnipeg logo right now, it'll be okay.
You'll be switching it. I know. It's all right, though, brother.
I appreciate it. Chris Walby, thank you so much again for taking the time.
My pleasure, brother. Talk to you soon anytime.
Thanks.
I got to go make some supper right now, okay? So, adios, my friend.
Adios.
Hey, Dorothy, stop calling me.
Well, we have Matt Baker here, manager. I want to get this right. Manager of communications and content for America's CFL team, the BC Lions. Matt, how are you doing today?
First off, Reed, you nailed the title. Got a few titles depending on the day, but everyone has to chip in everywhere. But yeah, hey man, great to be here. Big fan of the show, long time listener / viewer, whatever platform I'm on. So yeah, it's an honor to finally be here in the flesh.
Is it one of those things when I never know this, like people that manage content and manage social media, if they're like, Reed, just like shut up. Like when you see people like tweeting all the time, like tagging the BC Lions and stuff, is that annoying to the people that run the social media?
Not at all. Well, here's the thing, right? Whether you're talking about positive feedback, negative feedback, here's the thing I remind myself and I remind people who we work with, people care, right? So, we're in a 2-game losing streak right now. Not fun, right? You're getting all kinds of interesting reaction, and some of it is more polite than others, but people care. That's a good thing. And that's why we love you guys, because you're spreading the word, and you're really making some headway, I think, on this America's team thing, right? We might have to talk to Jerry Jones about getting that term used for us only, right?
I tell you, this is the thing. I tell Paul this. I go, this stuff is brought up on other shows that I'm not even bringing up now. So we're working out. Kudos to Rod Peterson for Canada's team, right? The Rough Riders. But no, I think America's CFL team. I think is America's CFL podcast. I think it's good. I want to know, Matt. So what the hell happened on Friday? I had a bet with CFL Hall of Famer Milt Stegall. I was embarrassed in front of the world. What happened with the Lions on Friday?
Well, first off, good on you. Good on you for having some fun with Milt. As you know, he's an all-time legend in this league. It sucks that you had to change your Twitter logo to that ugly thing there, W for the W, whatever their slogan is. But no, you can't sugarcoat it. I think more than anything else, you saw that Winnipeg right now, as you know, in this league, it doesn't matter till November. It's all about who's hot in about a month or two from now, right? Winnipeg really is the class of this league. Balanced, aggressive on defense. They've got that Andrew Harris guy who seems to go for 5-6 yards on average every carry. He had some injuries early in the year, and it seems like he's healthy, raring to go at the right time. And they have a couple of game breakers at receiver. You saw what Kenny Lawler was able to do. Zach Caleros at quarterback. You see what a full year of health can do. And especially he's surrounded by a lot of great weapons. It's not taking anything away from him. But that was, I can tell you, we're talking about all this social media stuff. I know internally here with the Lions, we were really excited for that game going in. We viewed it as a chance to sort of establish that the West is going to be a wide open race here for the final half of this year. And there's a lot to be determined. I think Winnipeg right now looks like they're sitting pretty on top, but you look what Calgary was able to do last week, and Saskatchewan, unfortunately dropping those two to the Riders might play a role in how all the tiebreakers work out. But we're still looking at a pretty solid race here for second, third, and fourth. I think it's going to be fun, but yeah, last Friday, can't sugarcoat it. Disappointing result, but I think the guys in blue and gold proved that right now they're in a class by themselves, but that could change. That's the beauty of one game. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference was, the Rough Riders game, it was so close, right? It's like comes down to the wire. It's like a heartbreak. Last Friday, I was at a rehearsal dinner for my wife's good friend's wedding, and I'm like watching the game on my phone. And, the first 2 and out, you're like, oh no, this is right. Because Winnipeg is, like you said, just in a class of their own. What were you sensing, watching that game versus the one with the Rough Riders, where it was a little more hotly contested?
As crazy as it sounds, the score might be a little misleading to what I'm about to say, but I look at that game again, that Winnipeg game, there were some opportunities for the momentum to turn. You look at late in the second quarter, I think the score was only 9-3. You elect to punt and pin the Bombers deep back at their own 5. You got to play the field position game against a team that balanced. And then sure enough, on the 2nd and 5, Tim Bonner, I think, as a guy jumps offside, gives them a fresh set of downs. There's another penalty that extends the drive later. So all of a sudden, you go from pinning them back at the 5 to surrendering a 105-yard touchdown drive. And at that point, I don't want to say game over that, but those are backbreakers. Couple of big takeaways in the second half where I think they just got a field goal and then came away with nothing at all. So there was some, despite that score looking like it was out of hand, there were some chances to snatch the momentum away. They couldn't do it. And you have to do it against good teams like that. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, going to have to go into Winnipeg here in a couple weeks. And I'll tell you what, I know you're coming up here next week. If you want to experience a fun CFL environment, you got to get to some of these prairie spots, Reed, you guys. Because going into there in October, the weather might get a little cooler. Here's a tidbit for you as well. Winnipeg's stadium, IG Field, had the same designer as Lumen Field in Seattle. So it kind of looks like a mini Lumen Field, and it was kind of built that way for the noise to kind of echo off. So these are the environments it looks like this Lions team is going to have to go into come playoff time. So that'll be a good test against them again in a couple weeks' time.
When you work with the league, do you still get into like every down, like the excitement of that? Or is it like a thing when you're working at like a concert and it's, I don't listen to the music, I'm trying to do my job? I mean, as a fan, do you still watch and enjoy the games?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of being right down there on the sidelines, right? So you're kind of into it. You kind of get wrapped up in all the excitement with the players reacting. And I kind of feel like a fan still when I watch, and that's kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't always feel like work, right? But there's a lot happening during games. I mean, I'm doing a lot of the social media, a lot of those sideline videos, media duties with my communications role, making sure TSN has what they need, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a hybrid of being really into the game and cheering and having a good time, or not cheering if something doesn't go well, but also making sure I have some of all those other bases covered. But yeah, I mean, we all get into this because we love sports, we love the team, and I'm a guy since age of 6, 7 years old going to Lions games. So yeah, I don't think I'll ever have the fan in me taken away as long as I'm lucky to be in this role.
All due respect aside, Mr. Domon, wonderful owner, right? We bring him in, revitalizing the BC. Do we need to keep him out of the building when we're playing at home? Because it seems like, right? It seems like I don't know if it's too much pressure, like the boss is there and everyone's really worried. I mean, remarkable that we've had 2 home games, right, under the new ownership or 3, right, in the Elks too. Losses in all 3 of those of the home games.
Well, we haven't lost on the road since he took over, I don't think. So there's that too. But no, I think he was joking about that in one of his interviews too. Whoever the host was, it might have been Rod Peterson actually, but I can't remember. Kind of brought that up, and well, that's funny. I mean, the tide's got to turn here though, because you said it. I mean, those 2 games against Saskatchewan might have played a role in how some of the standings might shake out. But I'll say this. I know Mr. Doman, he's a guy, BC guy, born and bred, done great business here. He's passionate about this team. And that was something he kept hearing about as far as the ownership, where Mr. Braley wanted to sell it to someone. In this case, his estate sold it. Wanted to sell to someone who was passionate about the team. And that's what we have. I mean, this guy's very involved in the community. I can tell you there's all kinds of ideas being put in motion in terms of getting more kids in and making sure there's better relationships as far as business and minor football. And, that's something that was missing the last few years of Mr. Braley's ownership. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to travel. I mean, the health issues sort of prevented that. And that was a presence that was missed, having the owner there, having him in attendance. The record's not what any of us want with him in there, but I will say it's good that we found a good local owner who's on hand when the team is playing.
Talking about, the excitement, going through that whole process, having him come in, as someone that's been with the team for, some years now, knowing kind of like, wow, I would feel like, I struck the lottery a little bit, right? Like, here I am, I'm with this team, we're doing okay, but now, man, we got this whole new, fresh everything coming in, right? Resources and ideas and money and things like that. What was that like for you and kind of the energy of the team?
Oh, I mean, breath of fresh air, really. And again, it's ticks all the boxes. Local, deep pockets, very well connected in the community. And yeah, I'm not sure, you mentioned the new resources and all that kind of things. And I'm sure we'll reap the benefits of that, I believe, going forward. I mean, we're kind of getting through 2021 as best we can right now, but just a total new energy around the team. No doubt about it. A good energy. Everyone's feeling great and optimistic about it.
I came out, this week, Lucky Whitehead, right? Injury, going to be out a couple weeks. What always struck me with him, besides being able to put the product on the field, right? Tremendous player, just the freshness, right? Marketability, right? Coming to the stadium, we got the goofy hats, we got the scooters, we're backing it up on the field. What is Lucky like as a person? And do you enjoy, these new, we're trying to build stars, we're trying to get marketable people, and having guys like him, Nathan Rourke, right? We're hoping future for him, a lot of these guys. What is that like being around them?
Very good question. Very good point, because, coming into this year, we were kind of thinking, like every team in this league, player turnover, no doubt about it. It's a problem. I mean, you hear that as one of the things that maybe why people aren't buying jerseys, maybe aren't buying tickets. The TV numbers are great, which is awesome. But yeah, Lucky is the epitome of what we were looking for, kind of, a new face, a new guy to get out there. And my experiences with him, nothing but awesome. You see his smile on the sidelines. What you see on TV is what you see in person, right? And I'll tell you a quick funny story. We're flying back from Montreal after the win there in September, and just the kind of guy he is. Lucky decides to help the flight attendants serve the meals and drinks. So there he is, pulling the cart back, taking drink orders. And that's just an example of the type of personality he is. But yeah, it's cool with the scooter and the hat and the Ninja Turtle backpack. New stars, new electrifying stars, right? Again, that's a challenge all the teams are facing, and we have some good ones, Michael Riley, Brian Burnham, TJ Lee, Gary Peters, Bo Lacumbo, examples of guys who have been here for a long time, but we know what they're all about, right? So Lucky has been awesome. And then, as far as the injury goes, let's just hope that it's closer to 2 weeks and not the 4. So we'll see what happens next week. The team will get back to practicing here, I think, on Sunday. So the surgery went well, and that's a guy we need on the field in this playoff stretch drive we're talking about.
Yeah, obviously Calgary coming to town next. Been ups and downs, right? We've Bo Levi, and he's in, and he's pulling stuff. How are you, just as a fan, feeling about that game? Obviously, removing, BC Lions are going to win every game, but how are you feeling about that game as a fan?
Gonna determine a lot, I think, right? You just look at the standings right now. They're right there, 2 points back. You can call it 4 points because currently have the upper hand in the tiebreaker. And yeah, we'll be watching that game of theirs in Saskatchewan keenly here this weekend. But it's going to determine a lot. You just got to do the math, right? A win there, and I don't want to say you're home and cooled, but you have locked up the season series, and then you will have picked up 2 more points. But yeah, you can never count out Calgary. I never for a second counted them out. Bo Levi Mitchell, it appears that he's gotten over whatever injury issues he had there, and maybe he was fighting that a little bit after the win we had there in week 2. I think he went on the injured list after that week, in fact, right? So, and it just seems, it's a credit to John Huffnagel and, the continuity and what they've built there these past several years. They've been dealing with injuries, and they just plug guys in, right? Just guys, good scouting, good evaluation. Kamar Jordan's a receiver there that's battled some injuries, but then they've had some other guys come in and step up, right? Drafted well, recruited well, and they're going to be in this race here these next couple of weeks, which is what makes this game coming up next Saturday important. Always fun when Calgary comes to town. Just historically over the franchise, some good battles, some big playoff wins, couple tough playoff losses over the years. The BC Lions, as you probably know, following this league now, Reed, they don't have that traditional rival like the Labor Day, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, Hamilton, right? But Calgary has kind of been their de facto big rival over the years, right? A lot of playoff games. Go back to the early 90s when Doug Flutie bolted to Calgary as a free agent, and very tough times. I mean, set the franchise back here for a couple years, right? So, yeah, if there's an opponent where this Lions team will be anxious to face, in need of a bounce back, Calgary's the one.
I have a note here in the show. David Sanchez reporting, right, that Davey Posey, I never know how to say these
Posey?
Yeah, he's getting signed, right? Is that to kind of help out with the Lucky Whitehead injury for the next couple weeks?
Well, as of this recording on Thursday afternoon, nothing there has been announced.
Okay.
So
that's okay.
I don't know what else I can add on that, Reed. But
that's okay.
David Sanchez is a buddy of mine, and I know for a fact he's pretty well connected. So
okay, I don't know what I gets into it, but I had that in the note. I wanted to make sure I ask you about that. I watched something that you posted the other day, or the team posted, Michael Riley, things to know about Michael Riley, who's his hero, watching Bachelor in Paradise. Is Michael Riley just the most wonderful person in the world to get to know? I mean, married, he's got kids, family guy, been in the league forever. I mean, talk about him as this, face of the franchise right now. And what does that do for the team and kind of the leadership role?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, you see him in the flesh. You see him in action. One of the bigger competitors you'll ever be around. It's amazing. Off the field, he could kind of switch that off and be that funny comedian guy, that funny family guy. With COVID and everything, we haven't done as many, in-person features and stuff this year, which is unfortunate because you can probably dig back into our archives and find some interviews of me and him where he's just hassling me and trying to get me off my game. And that kind of became a funny thing between the two of us. We'll have to get back to that maybe after our next win. But to me, though, that's kind of been the best storyline of this year. And it was a big question mark, not only for him, for a lot of the veterans coming into this year. We talked about Zach Collaros, right? Battling injuries, a year off. Michael said he used the year off to sort of rest up, heal up, a lot of bumps and bruises over the course of the last couple of years. Remember, he broke his wrist at the end of 2019, kind of put a wrench in to the team's quest to try to win a couple more down the stretch and try and make the playoffs after a really bad start, really bad season. But the year off was to his advantage, and he's playing as good as he's ever played. I mean, before that game against Winnipeg last week, he was leading pretty much in every category. I'll say he's the team's nominee for most outstanding player right now. Whether he gets the nod in the West Division, if Zach Collaros keeps doing what he's doing, those are hard accolades to ignore. But yeah, you're right. I mean, good family guy. And I think that video you're talking about, he talks about his dog, his Rottweiler, and talks about what he wanted to be when he grows up. And, it's a great thing. This is not a slight at any of the other leagues, but CFL players have more of a human element to them. Right? I mean, let's be honest, a lot of these guys, not him, but have to work jobs. They're regular type guys, and they're doing this for the love of the game more than anything. But Michael's a good one, and just hope like heck that the wins keep piling up, and he will be the guy to lead us to that elusive 7th Grey Cup if this year or beyond, whenever. Yeah,
it would be quite the storyline to have the American CFL team take over Winnipeg, and worried about that. Obviously, my wife is a Winnipeg fan, so now we have this, wonderful. She picked them the first.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Well, I know, but according to Chris Walby, who I just interviewed, Chris Walby sounds like wants to date Dorothy now. So it's interesting. Yes,
I was going to say Chris Walby, one of the best guys this league has ever produced. Miss him as a broadcaster. He used to broadcast the games when CBC had the contract. He was kind of the number one crew analyst, like the Grey Cup every year would be Chris Walby and Chris Cuthbert, right? So, no, that's great. Walby, I'm glad you talked to him because he's an all-time classic. Great guy.
Yeah. Rounding out here, really appreciate the time, taking the time on the bye week.
Pleasure.
Working for, what is the mentality like, coming off of a hard loss, getting ready to go again? We're going to have another home game. Like you said, I think they're starting practice on Sunday, right? what is the team working on now, kind of moving forward into next week?
Well, you watch the games, right? I think Rick Campbell alluded to this. They want to get that running game going. So, we talked about Mr. Posey a few minutes ago. If that's a possibility, maybe they're looking at bringing in a running back or two by the time this episode officially airs. But I think it's just getting back to doing what they did right when they were winning, right? I mean, good pass protection, good defense. I mean, the pass rush, that's another area. Well, they'll tell you a man has to get better because, again, you go outside, the line of scrimmage becomes that much more important. But you know what? I think, you can make an argument that the bye week always comes at a good time. In this case, it came at a good time, right? A couple of big statement games didn't go their way. Take a few days, refresh. The guys battling injuries have been in getting treatment and stuff, I'm sure. So I think you'll see a team come back refreshed and focused. And like we discussed, big one coming up here against Calgary. Will determine a lot.
Yeah, we'll be waving from the side, or from the stands. We'll be waving. I know with all the protocols and things, but yeah, we're excited. It's been a long time coming and getting up there, and it'll be fun having the Markcast invade Canada for the weekend. And we're looking forward. We have a great a high rise Airbnb right down by BC Place. I mean, we're going to do the whole. So we're very excited. It's going to be a fun weekend, and I'm excited to cheer on the Lions. And when we bought the tickets, we weren't even on the Lions thing yet. So it's been a long time coming, and we're very excited, so it should be good.
Well, we know that I'll tell the guys they have to perform well because Reed and Paul are in town, right? Yeah. I mean, this is no, that's great. I tell you, we always appreciate the support. It's great to extend the brand south of the border. And we'll make a point to come say hi at some point there on Saturday. Worst case, we'll have to wave from the field.
Yeah, wave from the field. I understand. Yeah, no, embarrassed in front of Milt Stiegel. I had Ed Tate writing me, making fun of me online. So we have a lot of things to make up for here. So I would appreciate the BC Lions stepping up, and I really appreciate your time. And this worked out well, doing it on the bye week and getting you while you're where you got a little bit of time.
Always appreciate it.
And we're back. Interesting news. We have some XFL news to cover.
Yeah. First off, thank you very much to Jeff Hamilton, Chris Walby, and Matt Baker for coming on the show. I appreciate that.
Apparently, thank you for trying to steal Reed's wife. Very interesting stuff.
Chris was like, I'm calling Dorothy, and he hung up the Zoom call. I'm like, Chris, let's. I was told
boundaries.
I was telling Dorothy about it. She goes, well, how does he even know what I look like? I go, well, no, it's just because you're a Winnipeg fan. Because he goes, oh, your wife's the most beautiful. I'm like, it's because you're a Winnipeg fan. You
don't think he stalked you maybe a little bit, Reed?
I don't think Chris and I could barely get the Zoom going. I don't think that Chris is cyber stalking my wife. My wife.
All right, moving on. XFL NFL partnership rumors are heating up. Interesting.
Here's the thing. All right. XFL stuff came out this week. Dwayne Johnson, our commander-in-chief, was flying to New York. Dany was flying to New York. I've already seen videos posted about this on YouTube. They get tens of thousands of views. People are asked me about it because I don't do a lot of that clickbait. In the title this week, I will say XFL, NFL, just because we got to get some views. But I don't, this whole partnership thing. Basically, you see the photo there. I'm going to post it here. I'm going to put my hand up so I remember to post this. Dany's got the thing, and then people are saying that is the NFL logo on the thing behind it. And because of that, they're saying that there is a potential for a partnership. And this is the craziest thing. It's like Zapruder. Remember I talked about, what is it, the JFK, the Zapruder film? I can never pronounce it.
Zapruder.
The Zapruder. This is we're enhance. This is crazy time.
Is he drinking a lime-a-rita or a strawberry there?
That is a Zoa. That is an orange Zoa.
Oh,
that's it. Yeah, no. Dwayne is Dwayne's very on brand, right? He's got the nice shoes, no socks. He's got the Zoa, but I just let's get excited. They're talking about it, right? It's going to come about. We're just getting patient. People Magazine covered the story, right? You get the views when they post about it, but this whole they're partnering with the NFL thing, I just can't even get behind it all.
No, I don't see that happening. Why does the NFL need the XFL? Why do they need that? Why do they need that partnership? I don't see why they would need that.
Unless they're trying to just to like offload, the thing is always the NFL doesn't need a feeder system. They have college football. Like, what does the NFL need that college football isn't providing?
I don't know. There's a small opportunity. Maybe something with all this name, image, and likeness stuff that's going on around college these days. Maybe much like how the NBA has a D League, maybe the NFL is thinking maybe they need a D League as well. That's a possibility. That's a very small possibility.
I just, when you look at some of the quotes the Danny's had before, that the Rocks had before, they want to have a league of culture, a league of purpose, a league of giving players voices, of valuing their opinions. That to me does not say we're going to sell to the NFL or we're going to partner to the NFL. Is it anything like when Brian Woods comes on our show and goes, I'm not taking the backseat to anybody. And then people go, oh, maybe the USFL wants to merge with the XFL. Like, you need to listen to like what the people are saying. And like, that's fine. I mean, they don't need to do any of this. The XFL is going to be its thing. I think it's going to be fine. I really do. Like, I know it's a poo-poo, whatever. I think they're taking their time. The Rock's working on it now. You said he's got a hip hop song, rap song coming out.
Yep. With Tech 9.
Well, so, maybe they drop an XFL line in there. That would be big.
That would be.
If they were freaking smart, they would drop an XFL thing in there. Dropping you fresh like the XFL dish. I don't know. I can't rap. But anyway, the last thing about this, Naylor tweeted after the whole Toronto thing that this was his quote, Toronto Argonauts owner MLSE were bullish this spring on the CFL collaborating with the XFL and lost that battle at the Board of Governors level. As the XFL moves on with plans for 2023, the Argonauts drew an historic low of 6,788 to last night's game against Ottawa. I mean, I don't
know if is that really a revolt though? Is that what he's insinuating? He's like, this is a revolt.
No, he's insinuating like this is Toronto's not done talking with the CFL. That's what Naylor's saying. But my thing, and I've always said this, we've had Dan Ralph on the show, we've had Paul Woods on the show. Changing the league that owns the Argos isn't going to make people interested in seeing the Argos. I think you're going to lose even more of those 7,000 people.
The only way you change a league to get people to see the Argos if you take the Argos to the NFL, and that's not happening right now. So,
well, I mean, the fact that we can count the number, 6,788. Two of those people at the game were Braden and Josh McGee, and not one of those people. So, like, you're actually losing people by bringing it into the XFL.
Very much so.
This is interesting too. The last night about this. So J.D. McKissick, he played for the Seahawks, right? He's a Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, all this stuff. He is with Washington football team, and they were talking, doing the AMA with Bleacher Report, and they were asking him, when did you know Taylor Heineke was a dog, right? Like a good player, like a baller. He goes, you talking about baby Russell Wilson?
Oh my God. Stop right there. Stop. Full stop.
No.
Full stop. Russell Wilson's is the youngest quarterback to hit 100 wins.
Well, until Patrick Mahomes is old enough.
Yeah, right. I know Kermit hits 100 wins. I understand it. Right now, Russell Wilson is the youngest player to hit 100 wins.
Yeah, I know.
Slow down on this talk. Yeah, Don't put those expectations on him. Let him be him.
That's true. I agree with that.
That's the way I'm looking at it. Let him be him. Let him just be Taylor Heineke. Not baby this, not baby that, not baby David Carr, Derek Carr, one of the Carrs. Just let him be Taylor Heineke, please. Just let him be that.
And talk about a loss with the Raiders against the Chargers. Wow.
Chargers looking good, man.
Chargers looking good. All right, last thing. Here we go. Fantasy football came out today. So Rob was on something, and I think they were going to do more like their live show today, but I didn't see a lot of other stuff coming out. So I am crediting FCF News about this because I've been on podcasts with them before and stuff. So if you're interested in FCF stuff, so season 2 that was going to be in the fall, that didn't ever happen because we're in the fall. They're coming spring 2022. They're going to partner with Peacock, but it's weird because they're with NBC LX, which is like a substation of NBC that's on. So it's kind of like, to me, it would kind of be like, so Pepsi owns 100 different soft drinks, and we're going to partner with like the off-brand diet mineral water. And now, we're
White Collar or some shit.
Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Like that we're part of that family. But I guess they're going to be on Peacock, so people are excited about that.
My thought is this, and I might be in the minority. I think this is a dumb move for them. I mean, they make dumb moves all the time, but this might be a dumb move because you have a partnership with Twitch. What's the status on that?
They have a two-year contract.
Okay, so they're still going to be on Twitch. I mean, that's fine. That's fine for now. But what happens if there starts to be a little beef between the Peacock, NBC corporate and Twitch? Where NBC Peacock's like, well, you're not watching the games on our stuff. You're watching them on Twitch. I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like there's NBC's already been contentious about some of the stuff they're doing with like WWE, for example. They've already been contentious about that. I don't know if they're gonna allow the Twitch thing to happen. I just don't. I don't know if that's gonna really happen.
Well, it is. You have to pay to be on Peacock, right? Or I have to pay to watch Peacock, right? I have to pay $4.99 or whatever. The other things that came out, all the owners from season 1 are going to be returning. But then I don't know if this was tongue in cheek or not. It said if they stay on with their previous teams is another conversation, as in like it's hinted. Well, here's the deal. People bought into like the Beast because it was Marshawn Lynch, because it was Renee Montgomery. So or they're talking like, well, there's going to be, 4 new teams and some of the owners, right? Republic, the company that handled all of like the people buying in and stuff, I don't know. That'd be like if I buy a stock with a startup and then that CEO moves and someone else comes in. Like maybe I don't want to be interested in that anymore. If I'm a Marshawn fan and I bought into the Beast and then he moves on to an expansion team and they give him like their own, I mean, that's like the biggest example.
I get it.
But because you're not buying the players, right? I mean, they're moving on. You're not buying, you're buying the logos and the owners, right? And kind of what you believe, like, okay, I like kind of funny. I want to be with the Wild Aces, whatever. All I know is this stuff came out today and I immediately had a headache. I'm like, this is why I hate. So I don't know if we're going to cover all this. We're talking about right now. They're talking about it's all going to be in Atlanta this year. They're going to have all the games on Saturday, 2 after lunch, 2 in the evening. That's per Surratt. There's going to be 8 teams. They're all going to be in Atlanta and they might have 1,000 to 2,000 people per game, which is not that many people.
Losing some weight. It's fitting a little big.
That's good.
Sorry.
That's good.
Distracted by that a little bit.
Looking good.
I mean, like I still go back to like I can't, and I guess apparently they might go international with this thing too.
In like a year or two. Yeah.
I just I'm just curious how this is going. I think the viewership for this stuff, they were taking numbers based on the fact that you open up Twitch and you have the game right there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how when you turn on the cable box here in LA and you have the default settings, it turns to Spectrum News 1. And if you don't change the settings every time you turn on the cable box, it starts on Spectrum News 1. So, yeah, I mean,
so it inflates the numbers. That's the thing. And that's what people didn't get anyway with the FCF. I firmly believe FCF was averaging around 50,000 people per game. I think that is a fair estimate. We talked about it. Jake Henry crunched the numbers. Seth crunched the numbers. They average about 54,000 people a game, which is fine. My problem now is, it's been a year. It's still going to be February, right? So this isn't the XFL, and I believe me, I have my own criticisms with that taking too much time off. But, the XFL was still averaging like 1 million viewers with everything. So you have something that was averaging 50,000 viewers now, taking a year off. NBC LX on Twitter, I know that's not the BLNL, has like 5,000 viewers or 5,000 followers. So
no one really knows that. No one really knows that's there. Like I've seen it maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
Like it's so hit or miss when you actually can there's that thing they're talking about. I just don't. I think it kind of is going to take away from that inflated viewership that Twitch did.
Yeah. I think that if they weren't on the front page, if they didn't have that, Anyway,
I think those 50,000 that are reasonably watching that stuff popped on Twitch. We're like, oh, let's just check this out.
Yep.
If that's not on Twitch, I don't think those people are going to go and pull up. Here in LA, it's Channel 4. They're not going to pull up 4.2 on their digital tuners to see NBC LX and go, oh, well, there's that thing that I wanted to watch really badly where the rules change from week to week. And I don't even know if this is really football, but, 5th down and, we can't do that we can't do that with 5 minutes and 46 seconds left. We have to do it before 5 minutes and 46 seconds to use our 5th down. Like, I don't know if people are going to seek that out on LX or Peacock. I don't know.
I firmly believe they're not like, it sounds great to say we are on Peacock. It sounds great to say we are with NBC. I do not think a demonstrable number of people more than they have watch because they're on that. I think it's great for the branding, right? It's great to say we have this partnership. It's great too because they're, I imagine, still trying to raise money. It's great to, not crowdfund, but like invest fund, whatever, Shark Tanky, whatever things. But I don't think a demonstrable number of people, like you said, are going to 4.2 or whatever to watch that. They're still going to watch on Twitch or they're not going to watch at all.
Completely right. And that's another thing, like content is king. Are they paying the FCF for this, or is the FCF going to be like, you could just have this content for a year free? That's another question I have. Interesting stuff. Again, want to thank everybody for listening. Want to thank our guests for dropping in, chatting with Reed. If I could pull up the document here and get their names, that'd be great. Jeff Hamilton, Chris Walby, and Matt Baker. All thanks for joining Reed earlier in the show.
It was fun. A good week. Edmonton, hopefully we'll see. But I think this is good. A lot of good conversations today. I feel good about what we did. So.
Yep. Tune in next week. By the way, when are we going to do the giveaway?
I just remember that. I'm going to do it. I had to. Paul, we
both had a lot. We both had really busy weeks.
We're getting there. I have it all. We're going to go back on the thing. So thank you all. Please subscribe, like, and subscribe. I wanted to talk about that at the beginning of the show, but we didn't. So yes, I will do the giveaway. I have everything. Nothing is going anywhere. We'll get all that squared away.
Perfect.
But if you're really mad about it, comment on the video and drive the algorithms. Let me know. I'm really mad. I wanted that Alouette or Argos jersey. But please comment. Yeah, drive the algorithm that way. And share the podcast too, please. We appreciate it. Thanks again for listening. Thanks to our guests, and we'll see you next week.